Good evening. I want to welcome everyone this evening to the Government Affairs Candidate Forum. It's great to see so many people out tonight. My name is Cody Sinclair. I'm the Chamber Board President and Government Affairs Committee member. Would you please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I want to thank Dixie Johnson, our Chief Executive Officer, who will be joining me up at the table, as well as Anna Bailey, our moderator today. Let's go over tonight just the forum and our procedures. We will be going through the forum in this order: Governor, Secretary of State, State Treasurer, Superintendent of Public Instruction, State Senator District number 21, State Representative District number 29, State Representative District number 40, and State Representative District number 51. Candidates will have a 2-minute intro followed by questions with a 1 minute to answer each question, and then a 2-minute closing. Chamber staff will operate a timer right up front, so Karen and Bobby, thank you for doing that for us. They also will hold up a sign when you have 30 seconds remaining, the yellow sign there, and a red stop when your time is done. All questions will be asked through our moderator. This forum is being live streamed and recorded, and it's our goal to have the recording available on our website, SheridanWyomingChamber.org, within 24 hours. Candidates, please enter the stage on the far side, your right, and we'll have you exit here by the moderator. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our moderator, Anna Bailey, our Government Affairs Committee Chair and Chamber Board of Directors. Anna, please take it over.
Good evening, and thank you for being here. We had a successful evening last night, and I look forward to hearing from our wonderful candidates this evening, and I'm glad you all are here. The Sheridan County Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee acts as a conduit for ideas and information regarding public policy to flow between members, the board, local municipalities, and elected officials in order to support the health of our communities and the mission of our chamber. All questions you will hear tonight were selected by the Government Affairs Committee. So let's get started. I'd like to introduce Governor Mark Gordon and Brent Bien to begin our first section tonight. Unfortunately, a couple of the candidates had to bow out last minute due to illness and a family emergency. We had 3 other candidates as of yesterday afternoon that were going to be here, and one canceled yesterday, 2 more today. So I apologize, we don't have more candidates here. But that's right, plenty to say from these guys, I'm sure. All right, so as Cody mentioned, you each get a 2-minute open. We'll begin with Brent Bien gets to go first, Governor Gordon will go second, and then we will alternate the order that I ask the questions, and then you'll have 1 minute to answer those. So with that, Brent Bien, your 2 minutes may begin.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, just for participating in this side of our democracy. I am Brent Bien, and I'm the principled conservative Republican running for the high office of governor here of our great state. And folks, as a native of this state, as a graduate of the University of Wyoming Engineering College, as a retired Marine Corps colonel, combat veteran, and aviator, folks, what I've seen in our nation, just the secular devolution here over the last 18 months, is far greater than anything I could have ever imagined. And I see a lack of leadership across our nation, across our state. And folks, I see federal overreach, wokeism permeating into our state. And folks, we have to come in and we have to stand up and stop this. And this is taking a stand, a leadership stand all the way across it. And folks, we also have to bridge and put a cap on these extreme taxes, property taxes we've got going on all the way across our state. But anyway, I am Brent Bien. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Governor Gordon, you may begin.
Well, thank you, and it's great to be back here. Thank you very much to the Chamber for this evening. I think the last time I was here, my daughter I made come up for Riders in the Sky. I feel a little bit like she did that night. It's nice to be back in my home. I grew up on a ranch in KC, just a little bit south of here. When I had the opportunity, I bought my own ranch. I've owned businesses up here on Main Street here and Main Street in Buffalo. Met my wife here, Jenny Gordon, worked in the hospital. So I have a deep-rooted understanding of Sheridan and a deep-rooted understanding of Wyoming. I serve as your governor, and it's the greatest honor I've ever had. Since the beginning, I wanted to make sure we focused on transparency, so you knew what we were doing with government. I gave you the leanest budget in over a decade, and we have continually fought back against the federal government. We've had over 30-plus lawsuits. It was our lawsuit that helped keep Bridger, the coal plant, open so that we could find a resolution, keep people working. It was our lawsuit that won, that made sure that OSHA couldn't require vaccine mandates. We have a lawsuit pending on the Biden leasing ban to be able to open up our energy. That is the principal thing that we need to do to be able to combat inflation, the pressure that we have from energy prices going out the roof. As a rancher, I fully understand. I know what that pain is. As somebody who understands what veterans are going through, I know what that pain is. We need to make sure that our taxes stay low. I have cut taxes, and I will continue to make sure that you have a very lean government. Thank you for the opportunity to serve as your governor.
Thank you, Governor Gordon. You get to be first to answer our first question. Oh, thank you. Good thing Dixie keeps me in line here. We do have a statement from Rex Rammel. Since he cannot be here tonight, he was the only one of the others that bowed out that did send something for us to read. This is from Rex. My name is Rex Rammel. I'm a veterinarian from Rock Springs. I was born and raised 12 miles from the southwest corner of Yellowstone Park. I am pro-family and extremely pleased that Roe v. Wade was overturned. If governor, it would be an honor to make sure no abortion is ever performed again in Wyoming. I am also pro-Second Amendment and would like to see Wyoming become a Second Amendment sanctuary state in which no gun control laws could be enforced. I have lived in or near the Wyoming border for over 50 years, and I feel I have a deep understanding of Wyoming issues. It would be an honor to serve as Wyoming governor. My website is rammelforwyoming.com. And that's RAMMELL for Wyoming.com. All right, so now we will move into questions. And like I said, Governor Gordon, you get to answer first. The need for economic diversity has been a challenge for decades. What do you see as the most promising opportunities for Wyoming in the next 4 years?
Well, thank you for that question, and it's something that we work on every day. I think the most promising opportunities are to make sure that we have the easiest regulatory structure and the best opportunities to be able to grow businesses. And I'm talking about small businesses as well as large businesses. That is one of the things that Sheridan has done extremely well. We are committed to making sure that we have the workforce. My Wyoming Innovation Partnership is really designed around being nimble and reacting to the ability of industries to be able to ask for particular skills and be able to have those skills available. I've also looked at reaching down into the high school to get more high school students able to get to work with the Earn While You Learn program. So I think it's workforce, it's access to capital, and it's regulatory freedom.
Thank you. Mr. Bien?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. I'm very much for deregulation across the board, as much as we can for small business. That is the economic engine in our state. And folks, I've spoken with many small businesses around our state as I look to set the conditions for apprenticeship, journeyman type programs, working with WyoTech, working with our high schools to try to get these trades back into our high schools, kick the wokeism out, replace that with the trades. And I do believe in this state we have such great opportunities here going forward and really expanding just the economic basis of our state and making us far more agile, particularly in the small business realm.
Thank you. Next question segues off this one, and Mr. Bien, you get to answer first. What role do you see public-private partnerships having in improving services and opportunities for growth?
Well, I think there's a lot of room there. Again, I don't think government is ever the solution. I do think it's always been the problem, but I do think that we can when the more communication we have, the more coordination we have across, whether it's tourism, again, business, these apprenticeship type programs that I've been working on. I think there's a lot of room there, and really it's a matter of regaining the trust of the citizenry, so they can see that transparency through our government and the potential assistance that we can provide.
Great, thank you. Governor Gordon?
Well, thanks. And I think there are a couple of places where public-private partnerships, by virtue of the fact that we are expanding our broadband, by virtue of the fact that we have an interstate and a road system, that we're going to be in this position of working on how to make sure that infrastructure works best for business growth and development. You know, as far as government sort of infusing capital into private businesses, not only do we have a constitutional challenge there, but, you know, I look at a company like Blacktooth here, and I see that it stood itself up on its own and really took advantage of opportunities. That's really what Wyoming ought to be about. Our government infrastructure really ought to be about helping those businesses do things like housing, do things like making sure they have better access to the resources that they might need, not monetary, but the other kinds of resources that are important to business.
Thank you. And you get to answer first on this question, Governor
Okay.
Gordon. How will you set your priorities for the State Lands Investment Board?
Well, it's interesting because the State Lands Investment Board deals with everything from you know, community grants to grazing leases. I think it's important that people remember our Constitution requires, with agricultural leasing, that we make sure that we get the best return for the kids. But we can do that in a way that guarantees we get more access to those lands for the public, and we can make more hunting available. So I'm really dedicated to making sure those two work together. In terms of what we do with grants and the community kinds of services, I've really been pushing to make sure that we have every community put a plan together on what their infrastructure needs are so that we can sort through that in a way that makes sense and we get the biggest bang for our dollar.
Thank you. Mr. Bien?
Well, I think that state land, you know, the 4.2 million acres roughly that we have out there for that, to where we can actually do the best for our education and making money off of that. And of course, I've never sat in the State Lands Review Board, but familiar with the process. But I do think going forward, I think it's a matter of figuring out what the requirements are across the state, and then sitting down with the panel and figuring out the best way forward, and doing naturally what's in the best interest of the long term of the state.
Great, thank you. Two more questions. They're kind of in the same vein. And Mr. Bien, you get to answer first. The state is significantly impacted by the federal government. What are the primary Fed actions you believe negatively impact our state, and how will you address them?
Across business, I do believe that ESG, the environmental social governance score, you know, this is very much a globalist movement. I think that's one of them that we need to ensure doesn't get entrenched in our state. I also see in education, we need to make sure that we re-baseline our education to get back to the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and really make an effort to kick this wokeism out of our school system. I think those are very heavy-handed when it comes down to that. And I think also that we got to make sure that you know, we are a sovereign state, and when it comes down to this federal overreach, particularly as we saw with COVID, that we make a stand and say no. And we just had two great Supreme Court decisions, and I will never support any red flag type of legislation that comes across.
Thank you. Governor Gordon?
So I think there are a variety of those. The one that is most pressing to Wyoming right now is this Biden leasing ban that we are fighting so hard to overturn. It's important that this nation have the opportunity to develop its resources. Wyoming has a tremendous opportunity to do that. We also have the EPA having overreach in a number of areas where we used to have cooperation. We've been able to make some progress, but where we don't, we have to fight on a daily basis. On endangered species, there is no reason why a grizzly bear that's been delisted twice can't continue under Wyoming guidance. In fact, Wyoming should control all the wildlife within our boundaries, and that is absolutely critical. In education, we have far too much meddling, I believe, from the federal government. That's why we started with our RIDE initiative that starts with parents, goes through communities and industries, and really talks at the ground level at what people want kids to learn.
Thank you. Last question. What is your view, if elected, on how our state would respond to the current legislation concerning firearm restrictions and/or confiscation? And Governor Gordon, you may go first.
That's pretty simple. We have two pieces of legislation which are profound. One is the SAPA bill I signed this year, the Second Amendment Protection Act, and the other is the Firearm Freedom Act that was signed back in 2010. We would not have any collection of guns. We are a Second Amendment state. I am a Second Amendment governor, and I will protect that right at all costs.
Thank you. Mr. Bien?
Absolutely. Our Second Amendment, self-protection and hunting are byproducts of our Second Amendment. And the purpose of that, of putting that in our Constitution, was to ensure that the people have the final authority to prevent tyranny across our nation. So there is, under no circumstance would I ever authorize or ever allow any sort of confiscation of any firearms across our state, and I would make sure that that never occurred on my watch.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. That ends our questions. You each have 2 minutes for a closing statement, and Governor Gordon, you may go first.
Well, thanks. Look, there's no reason why fuel prices should be as high as they are. We know it's these Biden policies that have really put us behind the 8 ball. That's what's driving inflation. That's what is making our economy have such a difficult time. We need to be energy independent again, and this administration has really held it back. I have fought in every way that I possibly can to lead 26 governors on making sure that we are an all-of-the-above energy nation. And that doesn't mean we do that at the cost of the environment. Wyoming is the first state to call for a carbon-negative future, and we can do that with our legacy industries and all the other industries that we have. It is important, too, that we secure our borders. It is really sad that our state has to participate with other states to do something the federal government should be doing. Immigration is a mess, and we've seen that in the horrible accident that we saw in Texas recently. Our country really does need to get back to the fundamentals that were in the 10th Amendment, the ones that reserve the rights to the states. As your governor, I will continue to fight to make sure that we have that. As your governor, I will continue, as I did as your treasurer, to make sure that the state has the least tax burden for our people. I want to make sure that our kids have a future. That means a good education system, and that means families will come here, build businesses, and stay. Lastly, I want to say how much I appreciate the people who have participated with my wife's hunger initiative. Jenny would love to be here. That initiative is making a difference every day. Both of us are all in for Wyoming for another 4 years. Our best years are ahead of us. Thank you to the Chamber. Thanks to everyone who is here this evening. Thanks for taking an interest. We have a great country, and I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you. Mr. Bien?
Thank you. And folks, thank you again for being here. Folks, as your governor, Wyoming will lead. Okay, we will go to the top. My first concern is reestablishing the trust of the citizenry. The only way for Wyoming to exceed and to excel to where I believe it should be is we have to regain that trust, and that comes naturally through our voting system, through the whole 9 yards on that. We have to do that. And it's a matter of establishing that from the top. The governor sets the tone for the state. And folks, through that, absolutely, we need to increase our retail energy sales, and I will pursue any state or any entity that's keeping us from doing that, particularly those coastal states. And we need to focus on our children, folks. They are our greatest natural resource, and I tell you, that is one of my absolute top priorities, is to kick this wokeism out of our schools. Okay, we've got to do that. We've got to replace that with trades and just integrate that through with the private sector, just like we were talking earlier about with the businesses to get it out there. Folks, Wyoming needs to be the freest state in the nation. Bottom line, we should be. Okay, we shouldn't be seeing these other states in our windshield. We should be seeing them in a rearview mirror. And folks, what that is that's very proactive, active, and tenacious leadership to make that happen. And we can do it. We can do it. We can do all of it to advance Wyoming to its rightful place at the top. So thank you very much. Again, I'm Brent Bien, and I'm asking for your vote on August 16th.
Thank you, Mr. Bien. Would you please give a hand to Governor Gordon and candidate Bien? Next up, we have candidates for the Secretary of State, Mark Armstrong, Don Dockstader, Chuck Gray, and Tara Nethercott. Please make your way to the stage. Who are we missing? Mark Armstrong. Is Mark Armstrong in the house? Okay. All right, we have 4 questions for each of these candidates after their 2-minute open, and we will begin with Mr. Don Dockstader.
Just for clarification, my name is Dan Dockstader. Good to be in Sheridan tonight. Good evening to all of you. Thank you. Dan Dockstader has been serving in the Wyoming State Legislature, House and Senate now for 16 years, 15 different committees, 2 runs on appropriations, and prior to that, various experience at the town council level, and also currently serving as the Vice Chairman of Lower Valley Energy's Board of Directors. That's a 35,000 meter co-op in the western part of the state that runs both electricity and natural gas. We've created quite a redundant system both for electricity and natural gas. I seek this office because I think there are opportunities to make improvements both in the election system and in the business division. I'm excited about the new digital technology, and that's what I'll talk about first in just a moment. But I think the opportunities are endless for what we can do for business across this state, at the same time making sure that we have secure and safe elections. I'm Dan Dockstader, and I'll answer more when we follow up with the questions, but good to be here with you tonight in Sheridan.
Thank you, Dan. And please accept my apologies. The typo was only on my sheet, but not on our other materials we have up here. So, all right, Mr. Chuck Gray, you are next.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Chuck Gray. I'm a small business person, represented portions of East Casper for 6 years, and I'm running for Secretary of State of the state of Wyoming. One of the big things that I've worked on as a member of the legislature is election integrity, and the Secretary of State office oversees elections in Wyoming. I was the lead sponsor on the voter ID bill that we got done in 2021. After 3 years of trying, it was a long process, but we got that done because of the grassroots, because of that support that we built. And we need a Secretary of State that is going to protect that voter ID bill, that is going to end ballot drop boxes, which have been cropping up around our state, make sure that we have paper ballots in our elections, and also ban the Zuck bucks, the third-party dollars that have been injected into elections across the country, which are very problematic. I also really, on the LLC side of things, we need to get fees under control. The fact that fees are funding the state rather than funding the office, I think is problematic. I think that we just need to have a fee structure that funds the office, and beyond that, We really don't need to charge small businesses that are cropping up, mom and pop businesses that someone is doing in their free time. We don't need to be charging them huge dollars for that. We should be encouraging those. And that's a big part of why I'm running for Secretary of State as well. I'm a conservative. You can check out my record on wyovote.com, 5-time award winner from CPAC. So I have the record and have brought through a number of bills, the voter ID bill, the ultrasound bill. So don't just talk the talk, which I know a lot of people, including myself, are getting tired of from candidates. I walk the walk on these issues, and you can contact me anytime. I listen. My number is 251-1372, so contact me anytime with questions, concerns about our campaign, and I look forward to answering these questions in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Tara Nethercott, you may go.
Thank you all. Good evening. It is wonderful to be with you all here in Sheridan, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for putting this on so that the public can hear and participate in the most foundational right that we have, which is the right to vote and select our candidates. One man, one vote is fundamental. I am Tara Nethercott, and I am running to be your next Republican Secretary of State. I am running because I believe in a stronger, better Wyoming for you. As a fifth-generation Wyomingite, my roots run deep, and my commitment to this state is true. I was born here, raised here, chose to build my life here. I graduated from Riverton High School and grew up most of that time in Riverton, where I then attended the University of Wyoming, where I attained my law degree and got my first job in Cheyenne. I know, you don't fault me for living in your capital city now. It is ours together. But I do live in Cheyenne, where I successfully ran a business for the last 12 years, practicing law there. Part of that practice was in corporate formations and registered agents, which notably is a primary duty and function of the Secretary of State's office. So for the last 12 years of my professional career, I worked hand in hand with the Secretary of State's office, both as a business owner and someone who fights and represents for businesses every day. In 2016, I was elected from Laramie County to the State Senate, where I now serve as the Senate Judiciary Chairman. And for 6 years, I have chosen to serve on the Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions Committee, which is the home committee to the Secretary of State's office. I'm incredibly proud of that work. I'm proud to have co-sponsored with Senator Dockstetter the voter ID bill. It was with our co-sponsorship and our colleagues in the Senate that we were able to get that through. I am committed to fighting for your vote, to protecting Wyoming's election integrity. Wyoming serves as an example to the nation for how to conduct elections, and I will continue to fight and preserve the security of your vote, one man, one vote, the foundation of our democracy, and to continue to maintain Wyoming to be open for business. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a second apology to issue, and that is to Mr. Gray, who's actually Representative Gray. So I should have introduced you that way. All right, into our, oh, and you two are also senators. Yes, Senator Nethercott, Senator Dockstader, and Representative Gray. Thank you. Or, yes. Oh my goodness. All right, can only get better from here. All right, I shouldn't say it. I'm knocking on wood. Okay, let's get into our questions. Secretary Buchanan and the county clerks have strenuously defended the level of election integrity in Wyoming. What will be your focus to continue to reinforce confidence in our election process? And our first to answer will be Senator Nethercott.
Thank you. I am so proud of Secretary Buchanan and the work that our 23 county clerks have done across this state to provide educational forums and a learning tour about just how our elections are conducted, to provide transparency to you, the voter, as to what really goes on behind the scenes. In 2017, I was assigned by the Secretary of State's office to serve on the Aging Task Force for voting equipment, and I know that Wyoming does not have any Dominion voting equipment in this state. None of those voting machines are connected to the internet, and that information is so important for you to know. Continuing that information and asking you to join in with your county clerks and being a poll worker or participating and volunteering with how our elections are conducted to ensure that you have that confidence on the ground here as you should, and entrust your local elected county clerk who is working on behalf of you and the people of Wyoming.
Thank you. Senator Dockstader, you may go next.
Thank you. I commend our Secretary of State, Ed Buchanan. We actually started in the House of Representatives together. a lot of years ago, and it's been good to work with him as he's moved on to Secretary of State. And I've discussed some of these things with him, and some of the concerns I've also discussed with clerks around the state, because it's those county clerks that actually take care of running the elections every year, and I commend them for a difficult and challenging job. I commend them because they're working hard to make sure that we got ballot integrity, accountability, and security, and I'm going to keep working on that. A couple of 2 or 3 things that came up in my conversations with them is perhaps we should verify residency a little stronger in our statutes. Prepared to do that. We want to take a closer look at that same-day registration to make sure we're not letting people slip through the system there. And I commend our Secretary of State for his post-election audit system that he has, and I would continue working on that.
Thank you. Representative Gray?
Thank you. One of the big contrasts in this race is that I believe that there's huge room for improvement in our election system. For one, I'm the only candidate that has said we need to ban ballot drop boxes in Wyoming. This is a very problematic practice and one that some counties have adopted, and we must ban those. And it's pivotal that we do that. We need to have all paper ballots. The fact that Laramie County has moved off paper ballots is very problematic because without a paper record, the count cannot be confirmed. And then we need to protect that voter ID law. When I entered the legislature in 2017, really decided to take that on and became the lead sponsor of that bill. And it took many times. In fact, the Senate many times rejected that on the Corporations Committee. And we got that through on the 3rd time because of that grassroots effort focused on election integrity. And that's what we need from the Secretary of State. We need to have that vigor and that realization that there's always areas of improvement.
Excellent, thank you. And Representative Gray, you get to go first in answering the next question. The Secretary of State office is a revenue generator for the state. What will be your approach to optimize those revenue streams?
Well, I think we should de-emphasize the idea that we're just going to be a slush fund for the state. We need to focus on providing services at the lowest cost possible and at cost. That's what the definition of running government like a business should be. And the fact that dollars are being used for slush fund accounts by the legislature that are coming from the Secretary of State's office, that's something that needs to end. And so we need to reduce filing fees for small businesses, ma and pa businesses, individuals that are doing businesses on the side. And that LLC system, Wyoming revolutionized that. We were the first to adopt the LLC, which is now one of the main organization method for corporations around the world. So we should be very proud of that, and we should continue to be on the cutting edge. But I'm very concerned about the idea that somehow those filing fees are going to fund other funds in the state. They should be used to fund the cost of the office, and that's it, and that should lead to a reduction in fees and taxes on small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Nethercott?
Thank you. It should be noted that Wyoming is one of the most competitive in the country for those filing fees. Wyoming pays close attention to that. My service on the Corporations Committee, we evaluate that every year to ensure that we are the most competitive in the country. There's only 2 states that we compete with very closely. Other than that, our fees are by far and less the lowest. It's less than $150 to earn Wyoming's corporate shield to operate a business in this state. It is a fair and competitive price. We do not give our services away for free or that corporate shield. Less than $150 is a fair exchange for that, and it should be competitive on the place. The office generates $30 million annually or $60 million a biennium. That means less taxes for you in exchange for that corporate shield that Wyoming offers for businesses in this state. I am committed to ensuring that Wyoming remains a placemaker. Your own representative, Arnie, brought that legislation forward of the LLC, the first in the country, and will continue to lead the way on that front here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Senator Dockstader?
I have a passion to make the change in the Secretary of State's office onto digital. We have an opportunity here, folks, in the digital world to tie in not only the Secretary of State's office, but several state agencies, for example, Revenue, other agencies along the way. So it's kind of a one-stop service. And our current Secretary of State's kind of got this started along the way. I am passionate about stepping in and making that one of my major goals. that we will have one-stop service, that we can step in and make sure that it's easy to do business in Wyoming. And we can do this digitally. I've done it with my own little business, 37 years running a Wyoming business. In the last 2 or 3 years, we actually have in our staff meeting a digital guy from one of the big companies that has permission to work with us to transfer our little business into the digital age. This is the future, and we can do it with our Secretary of State's office.
Thank you. And Senator Dockstader, you get to go first in answering this next question, which is a bit of a hot topic that you guys have somewhat touched on already. In April, Sheridan received national attention in the Washington Post, which stated that registered agents in Sheridan and throughout Wyoming are, quote, gatekeepers who help America to oligarchs and scammers, unquote. Do you see this as an issue? And if so, how would you address it?
I don't necessarily see it as a major issue, but we will address it along the way. I don't see it as an opportunity for people to step in and misuse Wyoming because we have the strategies in place to make sure that we're guarding against that. I don't necessarily accept that Sheridan is a gatekeeper for such. I think that we can make sure that not only Sheridan, but all of our cities, all of Wyoming is protected from such. And I'm not seeing that as a major concern, but nonetheless, we don't ignore anything that is a possibility.
Thank you. Representative Gray?
Well, certainly we're one Wyoming, and the idea of a mainstream media source, the Washington Compost, attacking us, we should view that with a lot of skepticism. At the same time, I've been doing town halls across the state, and there is concern about this. And I've been fielding ideas about having audits. We also, on the Revenue Committee, which I serve on, we've been working to reduce taxes, and we had a 3-hour hearing on this issue. There were a number of ideas on having audits, building transparency to make sure that if there are abuses, that we can bring them to light. So I do think it is an issue. I don't like the way the media is trying to attack our state, our Wyoming. We are one Wyoming. But at the same time, there's always areas for improvement. That's one of the contrasts in this race. I really think we need to have vigor in this office, and we need to focus on always improving and having those ideas. So thank you for that question, and it is an important issue.
Thank you. Senator Nethercott?
Thank you. Well, the issue is not new to the state of Wyoming, and a balance must be struck between our very favorable corporate laws that do allow for a great deal of confidentiality associated with who are behind those corporate entities. And so this will not be the last time I think we hear of this. So a compromise has to be struck, or a balance needs to be struck between being business-friendly and potentially attracting bad actors to our state. It is a reasonable concern. It is a concern that warrants additional conversation, both with the Secretary of State's office, the legislature, and the wonderful people of the state, in understanding how we can enhance technology. My service on the Blockchain and Financial Technology Task Force and how certainly has looked at this issue and continues to drive at this issue as it relates to the Secretary of State's office, and understanding how we can implement greater technology within the office to perhaps identify who those corporate individuals may be behind that corporate shield, behind that corporate entity, without attracting those bad actors. So I do think there's some solutions on the horizon, and it is a concern that needs to be discussed.
Thank you. Last question. What do you believe should be the top 3 priorities for the office of Secretary of State? And, apologies, Representative Gray, you get to answer this one first.
Election integrity is number 1. Banning ballot drop boxes, having paper ballots, having a hand audit, banning Zuck bucks, protecting our voter ID bill, ending crossover voting. That's priority number 1. Priority number 2 is state lands. We need a Wyoming-first approach to state lands. The Secretary of State serves on the state lands boards. I'm very concerned by some of the decisions the State Land Board has made against Wyoming landowners and on the side of big corporations that are coming into the state that aren't representing our Wyoming interests. So serving on that state land board, which we didn't talk about, is very important. And the third is building small businesses through our LLC rules, having the ability to e-file amendments, which is very important, and talk about that, lowering the fees. Those small businesses should not be funding slush funds that the state legislature allocates, but it should be done at cost, what the office's cost is. So the fact that it's $30 million over is very problematic. So I think those are the three big priorities for the office. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Nethercott?
Thank you. The three top priorities, one is election integrity, which certainly is unfortunate that Wyoming needs to defend itself, particularly from people who want to run from the Secretary of State's office, that there is a challenge with how we run our elections in this state. There is not, but certainly the concern is there, and so it needs to be addressed. Ensuring that you have the trust and confidence in your vote in this state is paramount, and continuing to address those concerns through education and information through your county clerks, I think, will be a priority. Secondly, would be our corporations entity. That aspect of the office is fundamental as we are facing potential recession and fighting inflation, and the office's role in ensuring Wyoming is a space maker for business in our state. And third would be the securities component of the Secretary of State's office, which is a fundamental duty of the Secretary of State's office. I am the only candidate with any experience with that particular issue for it, which the Secretary of State's office serves as the regulatory agency for all securities within the state. Also protecting the people of Wyoming from financial crimes and consumer protection related to those securities. Those are the top three priorities.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, that is the end of our question section. You now get... Oh, no. I apologize. Senator Dockstader, go ahead.
Thank you. That's all right. 3 points, folks. And you're doing a great job. Thank you, Annette. I had to do that a couple of times. It's not easy.
Thank you.
So, first of all, we've talked about election integrity. I put 3 points into that: ballot integrity, accountability, and security. And I will work tirelessly with all 23 counties to make sure we have that, all 23 county clerks. I would note that we have the Dropbox issue in nine counties, if it is an issue. 9 of the 23 counties have Dropboxes, and visiting with them, not a lot of concern at this point. But if the public says it's a concern, we'll follow it up. So election integrity. Number 2, streamlining the whole process, the digital process of the Secretary of State's office, willing to work with other legislators to get that done. And that ties in with my 3rd point. The Secretary of State's office has to have a working relationship, a good working relationship with all of the legislature. Because at some point, there will be bills and issues that come up, and if they don't have a good working relationship, that will cause the Secretary of State's office to fail. I have that good working relationship with the legislature and the administrative offices.
Thank you, Senator Dockstader. All right, now we will begin our 2-minute closing. Sorry, I had practice last night. You'd think I would have this down pat today. All right, so Senator Nethercott, you are the first for the 2-minute closing.
Well, thank you again for this opportunity. I appreciate you all being here again. We are all exercising our fundamental and foundational right to vote in this country. I applaud you for being here. Again, I am Tara Nethercott, running to be your Republican Secretary of State. I am committed to ensuring your vote is heard. I am committed to election integrity and making sure Wyoming remains an example to the nation for how to conduct elections. I am committed to ensuring Wyoming has a future when it comes to corporate creation and corporate entities. And I am committed to ensuring you are protected from financial crimes through those securities, bad actors who may come into our state and take advantage. I know many of you either have or know someone who's been a victim of a financial crime. I'm committed to fighting that and to pursuing those bad actors and getting compensation back for this state, just as I have as a practicing attorney and as a state senator on behalf of the people of Wyoming. I ask for your vote. Vote Tara Nethercott for Secretary of State. And for more information, you can see votetaraNethercott.com. Thank you for your time and attention here this evening.
Thank you. Senator Dockstader?
Again, I'm Dan Dockstader. Good to be with you tonight here in Sheridan. I will focus all of my energy on serving as Secretary of State, as I do now with the legislature. In my day job, I get up at 4 in the morning and work till 9 with the day job, and then the rest of the day, 9 on into the evening hours every day, is given to my legislative position in the Senate. I currently serve as the Senate President. It's an honor to serve you in that capacity. I will work tirelessly to make sure our elections are fair and secure. I will work tirelessly to make sure we make that transfer into the digital age. And I will maintain working relationships throughout Wyoming's government and throughout all 23 counties. I'm Dan Dockstetter, great-grandson of Kemmer coal miners, and I ask for your vote for Secretary of State.
Thank you. Representative Gray?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. Election integrity is a huge part of this race. You've heard a lot about it. And I do want to respond to the earlier point that Senator Nethercott made, that somehow raising concerns about possible improvements is raising questions about our election. And it's not the first time this point has been made. It was made in a Jackson Hole interview as well, saying that somehow this is a threat to our state, and it's not. The idea of being able to be dynamic, respond to problems, respond to issues that are out there, is what it means to be a good Secretary of State, what it means to be a good public official. When I got to the legislature and saw that we didn't have a voter ID law, I thought that was outrageous. And I wanted to bring that vigor to that effort. And it took a long time. In fact, the Senate Corporations Committee rejected that in joint committee. And I think that attitude that any change and any improvement is problematic underscored a lot of the opposition that we received on that ballot, including from Senator Nethercott, until we got the clerks on board. We kept pushing, we kept working with them, and then senators came on board, and we were able to get that bill done. But that's how you get these reforms done, is you have to be dynamic and also continue to work with those individuals, because the status quo is so easy to continue. So you have to keep talking to the clerks who were against the voter ID bill for so long. Keep talking to them, do interviews with them, talk to them about why it's important. And that's the kind of thing I'm going to bring to the Secretary of State's office, that dynamism to reduce business filing fees and to have transparency in our LLCs and to have a business climate that is going to continue to make Wyoming great. Please contact me anytime. My number is 251-1372. That's my cell, and you can talk to me about this race. I look forward to listening to your concerns, comments, questions, and thank you so much for this opportunity to be here and to hash out these differences, because that's what makes our republic great, when we can talk about these differences on the issues. So thank you.
Excellent job, all three of you, and thank you for your patience this evening. Can we give them a hand? Next up is the position of State Treasurer. We have Treasurer Kurt Meyer with us tonight, but absent and also running is Bill Gallup. So, Treasurer Meyer, you're going to have the stage to yourself. A water? Yes. This one's unopened. Right here. Thank you for being here, Treasurer Meyer. It's an honor.
You guys tonight.
So, just like the rest, you get a 2-minute open. I will ask you 4 questions, and then you'll have a 2-minute close.
Okay, thank you very
Please
much.
go ahead.
First of all, I can't see her, but my lovely wife Charlie is back there, so I've got to stand up there and say hello to everybody. There she is. Yeah. Been married 40 years, and she's a retired school teacher, and she taught 45 years in elementary. So,
Amazing.
well, it is great to be back in Sheridan. It seems like only less than a week ago that I was here at a different event. The public spirit and political spirit that you guys have in this community is to be admired. And thank you for the opportunity. I guess I can say that if I had 25 or 30 minutes, I could tell you all about the good news that the State Treasurer's Office has for Wyoming. You can look out there and you can see the problems that we've had with D.C. and everything else, and it really just kind of makes you want to stop watching news shows. It really does. I don't think I watched any news shows for almost a year just because of the bad news that was out there. But I can tell you, we've been working tirelessly at the Treasurer's office, and we've got a lot of good news for Wyoming.
Excellent. First question, and you have 1 minute to reply. The Treasurer's office employs highly qualified investment managers. What do you see as the Treasurer's role in investment of the state's funds?
Thank you very much for that question. I think the state treasurer brings one thing to the office that's really, really necessary, and that's leadership. And the leadership is to make sure that everything is working seamlessly together, and to bring that outside perspective. And the perspective I have is 24 years as a state treasurer, as a businessman. 24 years as a state senator, and a businessman, and understanding Wyoming. And that perspective, I think, helps guide the office and puts it into place to be successful.
Thank you. Next, what legislation would you like to see passed to make the office more effective?
Well, we've gotten a lot of legislation lately that has really, really helped. One was a reference portfolio that we modeled off of New Zealand. But one of the ones that we're really working on that needs to bear some fruit is a change in, and this could be a constitutional change or just a change in the way that we invest our educational funds. Right now, educational funds have been invested for a great deal of time on an income basis, and the rest of the office is basically invested on a total risk-adjusted return basis. If we can make that change, it'll add about another $40 to $50 million a year in our permanent funds, including the educational funds.
All right, excellent, thank you. If elected, how will you work to improve the office's accounting processes, systems, and overall transparency?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I want to say that we have been rated by the Institutional Investors publication and as a top-rate fund. But the Peterson Institute actually rated us #1 in the United States, #3 in the world on transparency, governance, accountability, and risk. So we've got some things that we need to do, and what we are doing right now is that we started it for the 1996 investment software program. We're implementing a new 2022 version, and that'll come online in July.
Okay, thank you. And last, what are the top challenges facing the Office of the Treasurer?
I think the top challenges that we have really is right now is the labor market. We were fortunate enough to get enough positions to finally get us up to where we're just right at average of the number of positions we should have based on our assets under management and the number of professionals that we have and the number of managers that we actually employ. And but I'm not sure whether we're going to have the salary scale to actually implement that particular plan. So that's a huge wind in front of us. The other one, frankly, is whether or not we're going to have enough legislators that understand their constitutional oath to protect, defend, and obey the Constitution. And I'd like to take this time right now to thank.
I apologize, you're out of time on
We're
the
out of time
question,
there. Okay.
but we can move into your
Yeah,
2-minute
yeah.
close and you can continue.
Yeah. Well, 2-minute closing. I'd like to thank Representative Gray for being one of those people that actually does protect, defend, and obey the Constitution. And I'd like to thank the Governor Gordon for a veto that he had this year on a part of the budget, which was going to take the Treasurer's office and devolve the right to hire and fire employees out of his office. And that was done by, I think, some state legislators that couldn't understand what it meant to protect, defend, and obey the Constitution, especially in light of the Powers Hill versus Meade decision of just a few years ago.
All right. Okay, well, Thank you for being here tonight. Excellent job. Let's please give Treasurer Kurt Meyer a hand. Next up, we have candidates for Superintendent of Public Instruction, Megan Degenfelder, Thomas Kelly, Sergio Maldonado, Sr., Superintendent Brian Schroeder, and Jennifer Zerba. Please make your way to the stage. Thank you all for being here. As in with the previous candidates, we will begin with your 2-minute open, and Megan Degenfelder, you get to go first.
Great. Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be here tonight in Sheridan with the Chamber. I previously worked for Cloud Peak Energy and had the opportunity to be very involved in the community here and in the Chamber, so it's really wonderful to be back. My name is Megan Degenfelder, and I come from a 6th-generation Wyoming ranching family. I went to public schools in Casper, graduated from the University of Wyoming, and hold a master's degree in economics. And I was fortunate to be able to then build my career, build my life right here in my home state. And that's why I'm so passionate about this job, to ensure that we provide just as many, if not more, opportunities to our future generations. There's a very special 4-year-old in the audience tonight by the name of Kay, and she's why I'm running for this position. She's why this all matters. I come from a background both in the private sector as well as education. I worked for Cloud Peak Energy in the coal industry up in Gillette, and now currently in oil and gas, where my sole responsibility is to fight back against the federal government, fight back against harmful regulations. In education, I was fortunate to serve in the previous superintendent, Jillian Baylow's cabinet, as a chief policy officer. As superintendent, I will strive to empower parents, ensuring that they have a seat at the table and a voice in their child's education. I'll work to partner with industry, making sure that our education system is nimble enough to meet the needs of an ever-changing workforce. I will work to improve literacy rates and advocate for education spending to be as close to the classroom as possible with students and teachers, not in bureaucracy, not in administration. I love Wyoming. I'm deeply accountable to Wyoming, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and participate in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thomas Kelly.
Hello, my name's Thomas Kelly. I'm running for state superintendent. I am the most qualified candidate up here in terms of experience in education. I have an MA in education. I have a PhD in American government. I am the chair of the Department of Political Science at American Military University, where I oversee a large bureaucracy of professors. Many who disagree with me, and I do so effectively. I was a public school teacher for 10 years, and I have several kids in the public schools. That's not why I'm running. I am the proverbial man who just wanted to be left alone. My family and I escaped from the People's Republic of Illinois over a decade ago. We fled to the great state of Colorado. After some trying years of my daughter having cancer and my son, who's on the audience, hey buddy, Kane, who had Down syndrome and a hole in his heart, I worked very hard and I was promoted from a professor to be in the department head under very trying times. But by the time my family was healed up, Colorado had become Illinois with mountains. So we came to Wyoming. I was not blessed to be born here. I came here on purpose, to raise my family, to be left alone. And then I started hearing the same warning signs I heard in Illinois and then Colorado. Diversity, equity, inclusion, buzzwords for critical race theory. When the Biden administration said, I'm going to withhold lunch money if you don't let boys on the girls' sports team, I wasn't surprised. That's an opening shot. If they smell blood in the water, they're coming for more. I'm running to protect our school system so we are not undercut by our own children being raised in neo-Marxism and anti-American ideals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Sergio?
Good evening. Thank you for the invitation to be here and share some ideas. My name is Sergio Maldonado. I am the 100th generation of people in the state of Wyoming. This is where my relatives come from. My mother is Ruth Francis Spoonhunter from the Arapaho tribe. My father is Andrew Maldonado from Pihuama, Jalisco. Yo soy Mexicano y Indio. I've been in education all my life, 20 plus years of classroom experience, public, boarding school, even the Federal Correctional Institution. I served as an instructor for 10 years. And I have a master's in elementary ed, supervision. My undergrad is from Brigham Young University. I'm currently a doctoral candidate at the University of Wyoming. I also served as an advisor to President Herbert Walker Bush for 3 years on the National Advisory Council on Indian Education. My background is education. I am running for the Superintendent of Public Instruction. I know I am qualified for this position, but more importantly, I represent equality in this state. I represent diversity, and I look forward to being of service. Many issues that we have to put on the table to share. Also, the funding of our schools, community colleges at the University of Wyoming have to be addressed. I thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to your vote of confidence in me as Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Thank you. Superintendent Schrader.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Brian Schrader. It is always a tremendous honor to be with fellow American patriots who care about their country and about the future of their state. Thank you for caring, for being here tonight. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. I grew up in southeastern Wisconsin. My wife and I we've been married 36 years. We have 7 children, 4 girls, 3 boys, 4 granddaughters, and 1 grandson on the way. So our quiver is full. They're all on their own, doing well. We couldn't be more proud of them. All of our kids went to the public schools all of their lives. And the reason, and I'll share with you just briefly my 3 career tracks. My life followed the first 15 and a half years in education. First 10 years as a school teacher, classroom teacher, last 5 years as a classroom teacher and principal, and then 2 years doing the same up in Cody, Wyoming when we moved out here to Wyoming. We're at a tipping point in this country. This is why I'm running. We're at a tipping point, and the tip of the spear is education. It's our schools. There is a nefarious cohort of social engineers that are hell-bent on grooming our children in a worldview and value system that is diametrically opposed to where most of us live. And I want to do everything I can to fight that and keep our schools pure and keep education where it needs to be. The purpose of education, in a nutshell, can be summed up in 4 words: to learn, to think. That's been the purpose of education for over 1,000 years. It's just been in the last 100 years that a progressive mindset has shifted the paradigm to where we've been experimenting on our kids. And I want to recover the purpose of education in this state and protect that. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. Jennifer Zerba, your 2-minute open.
Thank you for the invitation for me to be here. I'm Jennifer Zerba. I am running for Wyoming State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Ms. Bailey, fellow Wyomingites, good evening. It is such a pleasure to be here. I am a Wyoming native, as I mentioned earlier. I graduated from Kelly Walsh High School in 1989, where I then went to cosmetology school. I did cosmetology for 11 years and decided I wanted something more. So I went and got my business administration degree. And from there, I have done practically everything in business administration, from marketing, public relations, to management, to organizational behavior. When my husband moved us to Oregon, it was my honor to serve as the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce there. And also, I was in charge of Idaho, Oregon, and Washington for Toastmasters International, where I worked in business development, professional development, and training, and as the executive director, where I worked with my team of 30 people in 3 states in order for us to be able to develop a strategic plan and budget that reflected their needs. I am running because I love the show Undercover Boss. How many of you have seen Undercover Boss? The premise of it is, everybody who may not have seen it, is that these CEOs and board people end up going undercover and then finding out that their strategies, their policies, their procedures are not working. I am working for Natrona County School District currently as a substitute teacher while I finish my doctorate in education, learning, design, and technology, and I went, oh my gosh, they have no idea what it's like being in the trenches here. And so I am committed to making sure that we have responsible financial spending. I am committed to supporting our educators. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zerba. You do get to go first for our first question. The superintendent sits on several boards. What is one that you have a particular interest in? Why and how would you want to, why are you interested in that and how would you want to influence it?
Thank you. I think the land board is probably one of the most interesting ones, and because we have money coming in from sale and investments for education, I was very intrigued with one of our candidates that was talking about some opportunities and ideas for us to expand that. So I would be looking forward to working with him, and I believe it was Senator Dockstead, is that correct? Dockstetter, yes. So he had some wonderful ideas, and so yeah, I believe that that is one that I'm certainly looking forward to improve the revenue that's coming in. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Megan, you may go.
Thank you for the question. These boards are an extremely important role for the superintendent. As Ms. Zerba mentioned, the State Land Board manages over 4 million acres of state land that was allocated by the federal government to pay for the schools. And so we want to make sure that we are maximizing revenue as well as stewardship on those boards, as well as the investment board, which creates the investment policy for about $25 billion in the state investment portfolio. Some other ones that I think are really important to touch on include serving on the University of Wyoming Board of Trustees, as well as the Community College Commission. Those are such a great part of our pipeline to make sure that we are best preparing our teachers as well as the future students there. Also, the State Board of Education, extremely important, and then other groups such as the Wyoming Business Alliance. Those are great partnerships, and I see the superintendent truly as bridging the gap between all of these different education stakeholders across the state.
Thank you, Megan. Thomas?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this. The State Land and Investment Board. I have worked as an educator my whole life. I own 2 homes. I own 2 Harley Davidsons. I have 3 cars. I have 4 college degrees. I have 0 debt. I know how to manage money. Also, the State Board of Education is overly focused on college prep. America does not have a shortage of experts right now. We have a shortage of tradespeople. That's it.
Thank you. Sergio?
I see myself as a role model and a superintendent of public instruction, but more importantly for the students who attend the University of Wyoming, students from many diverse backgrounds. They will see me not only as a fellow student, but as a leader within my own community on the Wind River Reservation, having done some work at a national level, but more importantly, I will advocate for greater funding for the University of Wyoming, for our community colleges. If we don't have the funding, we don't have the students. I already know for a fact a committee member left because 3 staff left within her program. We cannot have this. Our schools need an acceptable, adequate level of funding.
Thank you, Mr. Maldonado. Superintendent Schrader?
Yes, of all the boards that I've worked on and served on so far, I definitely find the SLIB board the most challenging and very interesting on so many levels, just because of the community interaction. You get to know the dynamics of the communities and the care that the SLIB board has for the communities all around Wyoming. That's been a huge learning curve and very instructive. But the board I love being on the most is the State Board of Education. I love Ryan Furman's leadership, and there's something really good happening on the State Board of Education right now in terms of what I have heard from some of those that sit on the board may be likened to somewhat of a breakthrough in terms of really, in the words of one, listening to the teachers for the first time. I love what's happening with Profile of a Graduate, and I feel like I'm maybe at some point could have the most influence in terms of shaping the content areas of our education with integrating logic as a core discipline into our content areas.
Thank you. And you get to go first in answering the next question. What does school choice look like to you, and how do you think it benefits K-12 education?
Well, I'm a big proponent of school choice. For me, it's never been a territorial thing. Public school versus private school versus parochial school versus homeschooling versus private tutoring versus virtual learning. I believe in all of the above. I believe they should all work together, like iron sharpening iron. I know when growing up in this nation back in the 70s and 80s when homeschooling was coming of age, things were very territorial. Public schools and the private schools wouldn't touch homeschooling and vice versa. Homeschoolers had to prove themselves, and they have, and now the communities are working much closer together. I feel like this is America, this is free enterprise, that should affect our schools. The more competition, the better our schools get, so I'm all about school choice.
Thank you. Ms. Zerba?
School choice. I say there's something better. We're limited with school choice. And I offer this for consideration. The Turner County School District has what's called open enrollment district, which means out of the 28 schools that we have, you as a parent get to choose what kind of curriculum, what kind of education you want your child to have. My daughter, I wanted her to have Montessori schooling, so I was able to send her to Crest Hill Elementary, where she got Montessori schooling. It was not a voucher. It was not a charter. It was part of the public school system. My oldest daughter, that was the oldest daughter, the youngest daughter, she went to a school that did a lot of reading and definitely improved her reading. I feel that we need to be in alignment with our Constitution, the Wyoming Constitution. The Turner County School District definitely did that.
Thank you. Megan?
Thank you. In just about every area of education, I believe that the more choices, the more options for students and parents, the better. We've barely scratched the surface when it comes to school choice in our state. Growing up in Casper, I never knew any different, that you could choose which elementary school in town to go to. We still don't see that in most corners of the state. We can also look at increased options in terms of charter schools, private school options, religious schools. It is important that in our state that we advocate for the individual needs of every single child to be met, and then we make sure that parents know what their options are in deciding those.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
Just to say, you can call me Tom.
All right.
It's technically Dr. Kelly, but that just sounds so pompous. So,
Thanks.
I'm all for school choice. I am for the funds following the student, not going to the districts and to the schools, because the public schools tend to suck all the life out of all the competition at that point. I am a huge proponent of homeschooling. However, I am not a huge proponent of funding homeschooling, because then the state gets its fingers into people's homes with accountability and with standards, and the state has absolutely no business in what parents are teaching their kids in their home whatsoever. I would also like to see, to increase choice, the whole idea of loosening up some of the rules and regulations on what monitors our private schools.
Thank you. Sergio?
When I think of school choice, I immediately think of the acronym that we use in school, an IEP, an Individual Education Plan. Foundational. I support the notion of parents having a choice for where they want their children to be educated. But I also strongly support the notion of our public school system that has been in place and is foundational to the education of our children in Wyoming and across America. I support the idea that ADM monies, average daily membership monies, must be used for our public schools. All of the choices, I welcome parents to send their children wherever, even homeschooling, but they must fund that themselves. Our public schools are doing a great job, our teachers are doing a great job, and we need to support them.
Thank you. And Sergio, you get to go first on this question. The Wyoming Board of Education has obtained extensive public input into the profile of a graduate program. What is the most promising benefit you foresee in implementing the results?
Well, The notion of a graduate program is ambiguous. Are we addressing a high school graduate program or a college graduate program? Nonetheless, all of our graduates must have a foundation in basic education. Somebody made mention, I think it was Senator Dockstetter, that every one of our children must be able to read, write, and compute. 2 + 2 must equal 4, whether it's in Ethiopia, Wyoming, or Beijing, China. Our children, our students must be able to critically think, to have a level of common sense that will enable them to continue successfully in this world. I like what Thomas said, being debt-free. Yeah. Too many of our students enter college and they come out with just thousands of dollars in debt. That should not be the case, especially in Wyoming, especially in America.
Thank you, Sergio. Brian?
What I see as some of the most promising results coming out of it is already the discussions that have taken place at the Board of Education level, where I sense a real openness and sensitivity and posture to listen to those who are in the trenches doing the work. And the last few board meetings, we've had teachers from across the state presenting, those that have gotten Teacher of the Year and other awards, but also sharing from their heart what it's like to be a teacher in the trenches and what they need and what the State Board of Education needs to look at closer. One of the things that has come out is their plates are too full. They can't possibly teach all the standards, too many content areas, and I see and sense the State Board of Education really listening, I think, in large part because of the leadership. Ryan Furman, he himself is a teacher and a principal. He's been in the trenches, he knows what it's like, and he has a real concern and care for the teachers and making it better for them. That's just a start. There's so much more.
Thank you, Brian. Jennifer?
So we're talking about a profile of a graduate. I think we have way too much of a focus on college preparedness, meaning that in 11th grade, every single one of our students, regarding if they are special needs, special education, have an IEP program, are required to take a college preparedness exam. We don't talk about career technology education, so CTE. If you remember, I told you I'm a cosmetologist by trade for over 30 years, and I believe we need to have a skilled workforce. We need to stop teaching to the test, and we need to bring up CTE and make it just as honorable as a graduate to be a CTE graduate as it is for one that is ready for college. We need to be focusing on those graduates being able to go into a trade school, community college certification program, or a university. And all of them have basic education so that way they can be successful wherever they want to go.
Thank you. Ms. Degenfelder?
So what's really unique and exciting about this work, Profile of a Graduate, with the State Board of Education, is that for the first time that I'm aware of, they're looking at the whole picture of what we want from a student that graduates high school. Not only is that academics, that's career, citizenship, and other areas. And I think what's really exciting about that is it really makes it a community effort. Not putting all of the work on our teachers, not putting all the work on our parents or our industry, but working together to say this is what we expect when our kid comes out of the K-12 system. I'm really excited of the momentum there. They're continuing to have outreach with our different groups. There hasn't been much work between all these different education stakeholders. And so I think what this effort shows is the potential that if we work together, if we bring together these voices, that we can best prepare our kids for whatever pathway is in front of them. And one area that I love about it, it shows the different pathways a student can take after K-12 education and what they can expect in their future, what kind of salary, what kind of lifestyle, what they can expect in that. So really exciting stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
I like the idea of talking to the districts, talking to the teachers and finding out what they need. And it seems to be the feedback is they need less from the state, not more. They need fewer regulations, fewer standards. We can't do anything about the U.S. Department of Education. I could put a word in my friend Harriet after she beats Liz Cheney, but on the other hand, we can't do anything but control what happens here in the state. There is an overfocus on college prep and college graduation. I have no idea why the Hathaway Scholarship isn't going to trade schools as well as going for college prep too. It is important that we be able to trust parents, communities, and local districts to trust the educators on the ground in the trenches to know what's good for the kids and not have a top-down approach. Our top-down approach, we spend twice as much as Utah, we spend twice as much as Idaho on students, and 11% of our students are proficient in English. A majority are not proficient in math. The top-down approach is not working.
Thank you. And our last question will go to you first, Tom. Administration and funding of K-12 education are constrained by the Campbell decisions. If you could change just one thing in those decisions, what would it be and why?
Well, it's outside really the scope of the superintendent to be changing those decisions, so it's a matter of moving within them at that point. Now, it's the constraints for the funding. What I would really like to see is the state step back and do as little as possible as trying to regulate us as far as funds go. Now, the Campbell decisions, I can't talk off the top of my head specifically about them because I haven't studied them in particular, but I know what you mean about the required restraints, and we talked about before, Jennifer talked about the constitutional requirements. But my viewpoint would be coming primarily from the sense that the state already spends too much money. And our spending is, Ken will be talking about this. We don't have a revenue issue. We have a spending issue. So I wouldn't be looking to spend more money. I'd be looking to loosen regulations as much as possible so districts could hire fewer administrators so they could comply with fewer regulations.
Thank you. Sergio?
I'm not extremely familiar with the Campbell decision, but having worked with school systems throughout my life, I know this, that whether it's a state body, the state superintendent group, school superintendents across the state, we must have a level of consensus as to what we are doing with what we are doing. Mention was made that our scores are dismally low, yet our teachers are paid extremely well. Across the nation, we don't rank where we could be ranked. So one more time, I have to say this. What are we not talking about that must be put on the table for the betterment of our students? I will provide that kind of leadership in talking with people, the communities, the teachers, the educators, the people who they're in the trenches. This is how I will get the job done.
Thank you. Brian?
Well, what I like about the Campbell decisions is the guarantee that there's a constitutional mandate there to guarantee that that the school districts get the appropriate amount based on the ADM, where before that was not the case. I totally 100% agree with Dr. Kelly, and I was going to use the same statement tonight. I'll use it again just to emphasize it. Almost always in government, almost always, we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. And that's what always needs to be looked at. If the governor can cut $400 million out of the state budget, certainly we can do something in the Department of Education. But also the whole thing of the state regulating the districts, I'm all about local control, the districts regulating themselves, keeping it as close to home. As far as making the decisions, you know, that's always the best way to go, and I'm glad that's so deep in Wyoming's DNA.
Thank you, Brian. Jennifer?
I am not familiar with the Campbell decision. However, I do want to speak on behalf of our $300 million budget cut. Over the last several years, our school districts have had to endure. What that has led to, a few weeks ago, University of Wyoming sponsored research for the Wyoming Education Association, where it was found out that 65% of our Wyoming educators would quit if they could. Natrona County School District, just for this fall, had over 130 job openings. I don't believe that the problem is that we are spending too much. I don't believe we're spending enough on things that we need to be spending on, which means that we need to be retaining our teachers, doing everything we can to support our teachers, making sure they have the physical, mental, and emotional capabilities and support that they need for them to be successful.
Thank you. Megan?
So our forefathers, when developing our Constitution, prioritized education, and they specify that we need to have an adequate and equitable education. The Campbell cases determined that we couldn't continue on with having different counties having greater levels of spending for students than other counties, and then became the recapture and where we are today. The other important piece in this is that we have the statutory basket of goods that the legislature determines. So also per the Campbell cases, the legislature must fund what is in the basket of goods. I think rather than talking about cutting or taxing, we need to focus in on that basket. Is it adequate? Is it nimble enough to meet the needs of our ever-changing workforce? I'd really like to work with the legislature to address whether or not we are analyzing that. When I worked at the State Department, we updated that basket to include computer science. That was the first change that had occurred in over 20 years. We've got to be more nimble. We have to work together for the kids.
Thank you. That is the end of our questions. So now we will move to closing remarks. And Jennifer, you get to go first. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much again for inviting us to come and speak to all of you. I ask for you to allow me to serve, a public servant, as your Wyoming Superintendent of Public Instruction. I will ensure that our Wyoming students are ready for Wyoming, which means that I am committed to the financial responsible spending, committed to educators. I am deeply committed to our Wyoming Constitution, and finally to a skilled workforce. Not everyone is meant to go to college. And I believe that we can do a much better job of supporting CTE and making sure that all of our graduates are ready to go to work in Wyoming. And I sincerely hope that with the CTE and the skills such as electrician, plumbers, welders, cosmetologists, culinary people, that maybe, just maybe, we might have a rural revival to where we can have that strength and foundation in our smaller communities and have a stronger Wyoming. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan.
Well, thank you, and thank you all for coming tonight and being engaged in our process here for elections. When it comes down to it, when we think about our children and what we want for them in education, we want them to be good citizens, and we want them to have high-paying, successful jobs, and hopefully that's in Wyoming. And we do that by making sure that we're providing as many choices as possible, as many pathways, career pathways, college degree pathways as possible. And we do that also by ensuring that we have great teachers in the classroom, that we're addressing things like the teacher shortage, we're addressing teacher recruitment and retention. And we're also making sure that radical political ideologies are not finding their way in the classroom, that we're making sure that at the end of the day, we're focusing on what matters for our kids to learn and to be good, successful contributors to society, excuse me. In addition to education, you heard about some of these other boards that the superintendent serves on. These are critically important to our state, and we must have elected officials who understand our communities, who understand our industries, our development, and the mechanisms in which we fund our schools. I'm deeply rooted here in Wyoming. I love this state. My family's here, my friends are here, I built my career here. I'm not going anywhere. And I believe with that comes a great deal of accountability. As your superintendent, I will be accountable to you, and I'll be accountable to the voters. And most importantly, I'll be accountable to our future generations. My name is Megan Degenfelder, and I'm running for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, you may go.
Thank you. The biggest threat to Wyoming's way of life and liberty right now is an addiction to federal money. The Wyoming budget is dominated by education, and there are often talks down in the legislature about the need to raise taxes to fund the educational system, which already spends over $16,000 per student, while neighboring states pay half that, with better results. As long as we're addicted to federal money, the way of life here is at risk, because the USDA's move to ban school lunch money, if we don't adopt woke standards in our schools, as Brian said, that's just the tip of the spear. I think there's only one candidate up here other than myself who understands how grave of an issue this is. I just came back on a motorcycle trip from across the country. If the ponytail throws you off, I'm a Harley biker, not a hippie. And I went through Maryland, where they removed urinals from bathrooms so they didn't hurt the feelings of men without penises. It sounds funny here in Wyoming, but this is what woke ideology brings, and this is what they will bring into the classroom, and this is what your kids will preach to you if people don't stand up to it right now. I will not be caught flat-footed by it. My knees will not buckle. When the left gets in my face and screams and calls me a bigot, I've heard it before. I know who I am. I'm a family man, I'm a man of faith, and I'm a patriot. It wasn't my choice to put our children on the battlefield of the culture wars. The left did that to us. But I'm stepping up to defend my kids and yours. I'm running for state superintendent to get this message out, and I'm not asking for your vote. I'm asking you to choose the candidate who best understands this and best can fight it. And if it's not me, God bless. Pick the person who's better than me, because the job needs to be done correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Sergio?
First off, thank you, each and every one of you who came here. I like what Thomas said. My ponytail went left with age. I come with experience. I am a product of the baby boomer generation. My father was a disciplined carpenter. My mother was a disciplined mother, family caretaker. She instilled in me a love for books. I will provide the leadership necessary based on my lifetime experiences. I will provide that leadership where I know we can, not me, but we can find consensus in what we have to do in this multifaceted education diamond. And alone, I cannot do it, but with everybody's help, I know we can. Mention was made that this job, the superintendent of public instruction, I have to take ownership. I will be accountable for its success, not only now, but well into the future. My children, my grandchildren, and thereafter. I know that each and every one of you, as citizens of Wyoming, will make that right choice, the moral imperative. Let's do what is right. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio. Brian?
It is a shame that our schools have become a battleground. This is not about any of us up here, and if it is, I hope that becomes revealed to the people, because you should not vote for someone like that. One of the things that I've noticed in the 5 months that I've been in politics is there really is an attitude within politics to throw the grass up and see which way the wind is blowing, and that's the way I'm going to vote. When this whole USDA Title IX thing went down, I came out with a strong statement against it, and then there was panic within our department, and I didn't have enough information and knowledge on, am I blowing up the department? And so we went into a holding pattern, and the counsel that I got was, you fight it publicly out in the political world, and we'll comply procedurally. I didn't like it. I didn't feel right about it. I went home that weekend. I called legislators all weekend long. I called state superintendents from around the country and legal authorities, and by Sunday night, I knew what I had to do was what I wanted to do. And I came back Monday morning, called my people in and said, we're not doing it. We're not complying. Take those words off the printed items. Take them off the website. We're not doing it. And the response I got was, I disagree with you. I said, that's okay. I think you're going to lose the election. So be it. And that's what it's got to be about. This has got to be bigger than us. We have to be willing to make decisions whether we get reelected or not. That's where I'm at.
Thank you, Brian. That concludes our question and answer time from our candidates for Superintendent of Public Instruction. Please give them a hand. Thank you for being here. Next up, we have candidates for the state senator and state representative positions. There are 4 different districts represented, and we are going to have all candidates for those districts come up at the same time and get the same questions. So we need to see Gary Miller, Ken Pendergraft, Martha Wright, Senator Bo Beitman, Mark Hansen, Representative Barry Crago, Brian Miller, and Representative Cyrus Western. Okay. Thank you. Let's get started. You each have 2 minutes for your open, and we will begin with Senator Bo Beitman.
Well, good evening. Thanks for having me. I'm Senator Bo Beitman. I currently represent Senate District 21 here in Sheridan County. It's been an honor. I'm a conservative Republican, and I work in the oil and gas and mining industry. I have done so for about 20 years now. I'm passionate about serving the people of my district. I'm passionate about limited government, lower taxes, fighting back against the federal government overreach. I'm a strong supporter of life, the Second Amendment. I want to empower parents when it comes to education and school choice. I want to continue to fight back and be your lobbyist down in Cheyenne. Cheyenne is full of lobbyists when we're in session. You look up in the balcony and there's no average citizens there. You all are at work and you're depending on people like me to be your voice down in Cheyenne. I will continue to be your voice down in Cheyenne if I am reelected. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Hanson?
Hi, everybody. How are you? Good, I hope. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me? All right, everybody. Hello. I'm Mark Hanson. I am running for your Senate District seat number 21 against Mr. Bo Beitman. Can you hear me?
Sorry.
And please vote for me, right, on November 3rd. That's when it's going to come around. I am Mark Hanson. I'm running on the Democrat side. Everybody excited about that? The Democrat side? And my concerns are, and they have been going on for years. I have been here in the state for over 38 years. My mom has been a resident 32 years. She passed away, but I've been in and out of Sheridan for a number of decades, and I appreciate, can everybody hear me?
Yeah, maybe back away from the mic just a touch.
Can you hear me now? B1?
They'll adjust it.
B1.
They'll adjust it louder, but you can move back.
Okay. My fault. So going on, I feel a little bit nervous, but going on, my concerns for our economy here in Wyoming, our commerce, are creating a quantity of housing that affords all our new adulthood age Sheridan residents to have a place to raise their new families. Does that make sense? That's been going on. We've been talking about that. If an idea could be that these new subdivisions going up, that just 10% of the land could go to multifamily constructs, that might be an idea. There's going to be subdivisions going up. Can 10% of that land go to a multifamily construct? Is that a good idea? Something else I want to bring up is the Wyoming education monies are so closely related to coal and oil and gas severance taxes that our education people have to basically do the budgets depending on what oil and gas are going to do in the future. And it just seems, I don't know, it just seems too much up and down. There's a lot going on with the education, but I would like to see that there's other monies brought into the education department so that we don't have to depend on the severance taxes in order to pay for it, if that makes sense. So let's bring in another product. Let's bring in another money-making product that can help with school funding. There is a product, and I'll be talking about it. Okay, my name is Mark Hanson. Thanks for everybody listening to me. Hopefully you heard me. Please vote for me on November 3rd.
Thank you, Mark. Gary?
Hello, everyone. I'm Gary Miller. I'm running for a seat in the Wyoming House of Representatives representing District 29 as a conservative small government Republican. I'm running because I absolutely love Sheridan, Wyoming, and believe my business experience and unique mathematical, analytical, and financial skills can help keep Wyoming strong. My wife Susan and I moved back here 25 years ago because Sheridan is our favorite place in the entire world. We love this place. Some of you may know my wife Susan. 3 years ago, she was the FAB Sheridan Woman of the Year and was also the WYO Theater's Lotus Award honoree. Susan has done a lot for Sheridan. I've done a few things too. I have also been involved in numerous volunteer activities, including being on the hospital board for 12 years, serving as treasurer for 8 of those, and on the board of the Senior Center for 6 years, where I was chair for 2. I started Frontier Asset Management with my young nephew, Rob Miller, in Sheridan 22 years ago, and it has now grown to 50 employees, advises on about $7 billion, and has won numerous national awards.
Best of all, though, is that many of our employees are Sheridan natives, spouses of Sheridan natives, or University of Wyoming grads who may not have otherwise been able to stay in Wyoming. Many of Frontier's employees are also very active in the community. But what really matters now is what I can do for you in the Wyoming House of Representatives. I believe that the state can run better thinking more like a business, and I believe my unique experience and my strong problem-solving abilities is just what the state needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Ken, you may begin.
First of all, thank you, and thank everyone that is here. I appreciate your attention. My name is Pendergraft. Most of you have heard of me. Many of you are my friends. Some of you have heard that I'm a right-wing extremist oath keeper. If by right-wing you mean defending the Republican platform, so be it. Every word of it, I helped write it. If by right-wing you mean defending the Bill of Rights, I am a combat veteran, and I'm endorsed by Gun Owners of America. If by right-wing you mean defending the Bill of Rights, I just said that part, sorry. If by right-wing you mean defending the right to life, I'm the only House District 29 candidate endorsed by Wyoming's Right to Life. As for extremist, it was Barry Goldwater who said, extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice, and moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue. I took 2 oaths in my life, only 2. One was to love, honor, and cherish, forsaking all others, and I have lived that oath every day of my life for over 40 years. The second was to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I put my life on the line for what we believe. Neither oath has a statute of limitations. I am not a member of the Oath Keepers organization. I have not been for well over a dozen years. If, however, you think that keeping an oath is not honorable, I'm not your guy. On the other hand, if you want someone who will tell you exactly what he believes in and stands for, that's who I am. I'm a man who fixes things. I know how to get things done. I approve of this intro, and you should too.
Thank you, Ken. Martha, you're up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Martha Wright. I'm running for state representative of House District 29. I want to acknowledge and thank the Sheridan Chamber, those of you here at the YO, and those of you watching from home. I want to provide an alternative voice and a balance of viewpoints for the upcoming election. What a better venue. I have 3 campaign priorities. Number 1, working to provide a brighter future for our young people, with the end result that as adults, they choose to stay in Sheridan. Number 2, looking at how best to care for our environment so that these natural disasters don't become the new normal. And number 3, increasing access to health care. I was born and raised in wonderful Wyoming, graduated from Cheyenne East High. My grandparents homesteaded over in Campbell County. My mother's extended family owned the funeral home down in Buffalo for 3 generations. I live by the Wyoming values I was raised with: respect, kindness, generosity, and compassion. My lifelong work, both here and out of state, has always been in service to others, including the criminal justice and healthcare fields. I volunteered at Sagebrush Elementary as a foster grandma. Currently, I work part-time at our YMCA. I ask for your support. I ask for your vote. With courage and kindness, we will make a difference.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Crago, you may go.
Thank you, Anna. First of all, let me thank the Chamber for having us all here tonight and organizing this event. It's great to get out and speak with everybody and hear what our competition has to say. My name is Barry Crago. I am a conservative Republican running for re-election to House District 40, which most of you know, but that's all of Johnson County and a good portion of Sheridan, eastern Sheridan County, as well as now Story. So I get to go and campaign in Story, which I haven't got to do yet. So I'm going to lean on some of these other fellows that have to figure out how to do that. I'm a father, I'm a husband, rancher, lawyer. I've worked in the county attorney's office in Johnson County for quite some time now, since about 2007. My wife is also a lawyer, but she's sort of given up the practice of law to be a principal at the Christian school in Buffalo. I have two daughters, Lily and Caroline. They're going to be a senior and a sophomore in high school, and that is my most time-consuming job, is keeping track of them. But without them, I would not be here. They support me the whole way, and they are my campaign team, and so I just got to give a shout out to them. I'm running for re-election to the legislature because of them. I'm doing this because I love my kids, I love my wife, I love my family, but I love my community, I love my state, and I love our country. I just feel a great sense of duty to keep Wyoming the way it is, the way I grew up in the West. And I want my daughters to be able to raise their children in Wyoming the same way I grew up. And I don't want it molded by some outside version, outside political pressures, some version created by outside political pressures that we're seeing come our way. And it's nothing new, but we just need to keep fighting against those. And I think we can do that in Cheyenne, and I want to go back and keep doing that for the residents and constituents of House District 40 for the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Brian, you may go.
Great. Thank you to the Chamber, and thank you to those who have come here tonight to hear what our local, state, and federal candidates are all about. I'm Brian Miller, follower of Christ, son of Ed and Joy Miller, husband to my wonderful wife, Susan, for now nearly 32 years, and brother to 4 great siblings. I'm a 1984 graduate of Sheridan High School, a 1988 graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, and I hold 2 master's degrees. I've logged more than 2,500 hours in multiple military and civilian aircraft, flown 58 combat or combat support missions across several war zones, led Air Force One advanced teams arranging for presidential arrivals and departures worldwide, and let me tell you, that was a stress-filled job. I spent a total of 8 years on senior staffs at the Pentagon, the United States Northern Command, and Northern Aerospace Defense Command. There, my roles included developing strategy and plans, drafting national policy, analyzing proposed statutory and regulatory initiatives, and protecting our national radar infrastructure from those gigantic wind turbines being funded by taxpayer dollars that have a very nasty tendency to turn air traffic, air defense, and national weather radars into very expensive paperweights. When I retired as Lieutenant Colonel in 2011, I took that experience and created a business and brought it back home to Sheridan, a business that was designed from day one to save taxpayer dollars, millions of taxpayer dollars, every time the advice that I provide is acted on. It's a fact, and I can back that up if you want the numbers. I've been a leader all my life, from my days as Star Greenhand in the John B. Kendrick chapter of the Future Farmers of America, to leading airmen into battle, to leading the fight to maintain our freedom and our God-given rights as citizens in the civil sector today. Please help me continue that fight for our great nation and our great state. Vote Brian Miller, House District 51, on August 16th. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Cyrus?
I'd like to start off by thanking the Chamber of Commerce. They put a lot of work into these events, and it's really critical and important that they do this to allow the voters to hear what we have to say. So I'm Cyrus Western, and I was raised right here in Sheridan County, and I work in commercial real estate, and I have properties across 5 counties, and I'm happy to support those communities by contributing to that property tax base. In 2018, I ran for the legislature for multiple reasons. One of them was this: being the youngest person up here, I don't see that as a weakness. I see that as a strength. I felt that need to not be another young person that left Wyoming, not be another person that didn't engage, didn't pay attention to what was going on, or ask those questions. I wanted to be a young person who invested their best years here in Wyoming to carry that torch forward, to be engaged in this really amazing process that we have in our democratic republic. That was what I campaigned on then, and that's what I'm campaigning on now. I'm really proud of the work that I've gotten done in Cheyenne over the last 4 years, but the reality is there's still a lot of work left to be done. I'm proud to have supported our constitutional rights, have supported our Second Amendment, to have supported election integrity. But I'm also really proud about the things that we're doing here, right here in Sheridan. one of the cores of the things I'm running on is jobs and the economy. There is nothing more important than the economic future of our community. Having those good blue-collar jobs that have fueled our economy, fueled Wyoming, and fueled our nation. So these are some of the things I've worked on, whether it's training for vocational degrees, working with some of the senators that spoke specifically, Tara Nethercott, to ensure that we have the tools, that these community colleges have the tools to train the employees that we need of the future. So these are some of the things that I've ran on, and I'm looking forward to answering some of these questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Cyrus. Now, before we move into the question section, I do want to draw your attention to how we have seated the candidates up here. District 21, or running for District 21, is Senator Bo Beitman and Mark Hansen, so they are together. Next, for District 29, is Gary, Ken, and Martha. District 40 is Barry Crago, and absent tonight is Richard Tass. And then for District 51 is Cyrus and Brian, so you can keep that in mind as they are answering their questions. First question, and Cyrus, you get to answer first. What do you believe are the top 3 issues impacting Sheridan County that should be addressed by the legislature, and how will you address these issues?
Thank you for the question. Certainly one of the biggest issues is affordable housing, workforce housing. The reality is we cannot have a thriving middle class until we have some of these housing issues addressed, whether it's some of the folks who work in the mines, who work in light manufacturing here in Sheridan. Housing is so important to ensuring this is a viable, livable place. Again, I talked about jobs, the economy. I'm going to continue to talk about it all night. This is a really important thing. I think also working with our community colleges, which, by the way, Sheridan College has done a pretty good job at tooling their curriculum to meet the needs of industry. And I think also addressing the property tax issue we have here. Transitioning to an acquisition-based system is good because this keeps our costs low and it keeps people in their homes. That's your property. That's part of your sovereign right. And addressing that's going to be one of the big issues, I think, next session that I promise to address.
Thank you, Cyrus. Bo?
Thought we were going down the line. I would say number 1 would be gas prices and unlocking Wyoming energy. We went from energy independent and an oil exporter 16 months ago before Joe Biden took office and the Democrats took over our economy. They have turned us into absolute dependence on foreign oil. We're paying over $5 a gallon for gasoline, and we are one of the most energy-rich countries in the world. It's unacceptable, and Wyoming sits on top of trillions of barrels of oil, trillions of cubic feet of natural gas, and trillions of metric tons of coal still. We have the energy here. Let's get to work. Let's unlock it. Why is it in the ground? It's a myriad of issues, but one of the things that we can do something about here is stopping ESG and social credit scores. That is creating this supply crisis we are seeing in the oil and gas industry right now. Banks are not lending to oil and gas companies because of climate change. Banks are colluding together to debank fossil. I'm running out of energy. Property taxes, number 2, and education, number 3.
Thank you, Bo. Mr. Hansen?
Hi, everybody. My concerns are Medicaid expansion, opening up our medical options. My concerns are education, but my concern is for housing. I don't want to see this turn into a Jackson Hole type situation where us who do grow up, you know, our Bronx and our Panthers and Rams and our other people from high school here, I don't want to leave out one, what's the other one, the Eagles, can stay here and can get housing and can stay right here in their families, you know, and visit their families right here in Sheridan County. So I'm concerned about housing. I'm concerned about Medicaid expansion. I've been asked about economy. It's amazing what Medicaid expansion does for the economy overall. Montana has just got done with their report, their economic impact report, and it's a bigger state, but it's pretty impressive. And I also, you don't want to hear it, and I don't necessarily want to talk about it, but the giant agricultural boom waiting to happen right in front of your faces is this marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Anna. You know, inflation is certainly a huge problem, and it's causing all kinds of ramifications throughout the economy, and one of those, of course, is our property tax. You know, I don't think the state legislatures ever thought that we'd see 30 and 40% increases in property tax in 1 year, and so that is an obvious thing that we legislators can work to fix. The housing situation here is part of that property tax issue, and that prices have gone up so much that it's really hard to afford a house. But not everybody needs a house. So let's keep in mind that other ways of housing, apartments, condos, trailers, may be best suited for a high-priced market to get people in the housing that they need. The other thing I would say is that everywhere we have too much regulation on small businesses. Too many rules, too many things we can't do. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Ken?
The three issues that Sheridan faces are also the same issues that Wyoming faces. We just happen to kind of be the flashpoint right now. The first one I would say is growth. The second one is taxes. We need to move, for example, to an acquisition-based property tax. And the third one is maintaining opportunities so that our kids can stay here and be able to live here. I learned a long time ago that all too often the urgent outweighs the important. And we make rash decisions. We react rather than becoming proactive. We need to make sure that counties and cities work together, preparing for growth, so that as the city begins to annex other areas, they don't have to go through and redo things that were just done. There are many things that could come into this. I just think it takes a judicious perspective to stand back and look at what's happening and try to look down range. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Martha?
Anna, would you repeat the question for me?
Certainly. What do you believe are the top 3 issues impacting Sheridan County that should be addressed by the legislature, and how will you address these issues?
Okay, that's what I was afraid it was. Because I don't know that I can give 3 priorities and 3 solutions. But, so I will go. One, our children, the education. Right now, for some time, I feel our children have just lived in chaos. It started back with the pandemic, the do's and the don'ts, and number 1, the schools closing down, staying at home, being with their brothers and sisters full-time, etc. Oh my gosh, 30 seconds. Okay, so Mark and I, we are Democrats. I'm also going to mention another word that you don't want to hear, is the LGBTQ community. Between last night and tonight, nobody has said those words. I spoke with young adults. That was their big concern, is the kindness that is lacking towards this community. I hope, Mr. Schrader, I got to stop.
Oh, thank you, Martha. It was a lot to ask and for 1 minute of response. Mr. Crago?
Thank you. I, like Martha, probably will have a hard time narrowing this down to 3 because there's so many things we need to address as the legislature when we get to Cheyenne, but since you asked, I'll do my best. Property taxes, I think that's on the forefront of everybody's mind right now. As everybody's mentioned, we all opened our assessments and got huge increases, and so I think we need to go down, look at our solutions. There's not just one solution, there's lots of solutions. We need to work with each other and figure out what works best for everybody and all of our assessors and the rest of the state around, as we work around that issue. Inflation. That's a big, huge one that we all are, I think Senator Beitman talked about it a second ago. Inflation is breathing down our neck, and it's going to cause huge problems for the economy, jobs, and all the businesses providing those jobs. And then education is always an important issue, and we got to continue to provide that constitutional requirement of education while at the same time being able to figure out where we can cut costs and help our citizens lower those taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
All right. 3 is tough, but I can do that. Taxes. It is not our job as folks in the legislature to actually determine the taxes. However, it is our job to make sure that our most vulnerable residents, who are going to soon be taxed out of their own homes, not have that happen. So I think the absolute solution to that is acquisition depreciation. We must go through with that process. I could talk for a long time on what happened in 1988 and how we got to where we are, but I won't. Inflation's killing us, and a lot of other items that deal. Great, 30 seconds. All right, I'll move on with that one. Election integrity is important. Transparency and accountability. Energy and jobs, or energy and education are all things that need to be done. We need to get down to Cheyenne, and we need to do things to take care of our business here in Wyoming. Transparency is huge. We're not transparent across the board, and when you look at okay, well, in there.
Thank you, Brian. All right, next question. Brian, you get to kick us off with the first answer. What are your thoughts? I'm sorry. Oh, is there a timer? Somebody's timer's going off.
Yeah,
it's not ours.
Yeah, Cyrus went first.
Yeah, I went. All right, all good.
But thanks, Karen.
Brian.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on continuing to fund the subsidies for air service to Sheridan?
Well, back when, I didn't think we should have changed over to the system we had. I thought we had a pretty doggone good system. I think the state should have stayed out of it. The subsidies that we had were going good. We were getting closer and closer to having an airline that could work here without needing subsidies. And now that we're in the process of impacting other cities around the state, we know we're probably going to end up getting stuck with it. But I think that should be local. That shouldn't be the state doing it. If we want our airline service, we should be taking care of that.
Thank you. Cyrus?
So I've been very consistent on this one. I'll give you a very clear answer. Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. And this is why. We need air service in Sheridan. It is so critically important for economic diversity and for jobs in the economy. Go talk to any of the folks that are light manufacturers at Weatherby, at EMET. They use that all the time. When we're trying to lure companies to move to Sheridan, one of the top criteria is, what's your air service like? And to state a correction, there is a local component that is shared by the county and the municipality. And we're getting closer and closer where it's almost entirely organically funded by natural demand. So go ahead and attack me for it, but absolutely, because again, I'm running on a jobs and the economy platform, and it's really important to have those companies move here and those middle-class jobs right here in Sheridan.
Thank you, Cyrus. Bo, we're back to you.
Thank you. I, at the very beginning, did not support the subsidies because I believe in the free market. I believe if there's a market demand for something, the airline would survive on its own. Now what we have going on is working out pretty well, and I'm hearing that the subsidies are not going to be needed for much longer, which is good. So I would continue. I wouldn't pull the rug out from under them just yet, but I will be keeping a close eye on them and hoping that there will be enough organic demand to keep the air service here. But I don't believe in subsidizing something forever, and I don't think we should. If it's a failure, it needs to fail. But if it's going to get going and demand picks up and it can live on its own, then I would support that.
Thank you, Bo. Mark?
Hi, everybody. So airlines are extremely important. I agree with a business coming into Wyoming and they say, hey, can we fly there? And they say no. Like, well, I'm not moving my business to this podunk area. Please let there be an airline. I do understand airlines. I'm from Gillette, more or less. I've lived in Buffalo, and if you can fly out of the town, it's important. It's a safety issue. I do think that they need to be subsidized, and I would encourage that greatly.
All right. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Thank you. You know, we have gone round and round and round with our air service for the last 20 plus years. And it seems like, you know, we got into this vicious circle where we'd have poor performance of our airline. So then all of us would go up to Billings or over to Gillette or down to Casper for a better flight. And so then everybody thought that we weren't qualified to have better service. Well, it looks like we finally have something here. And, you know, what Bo said is actually right, that if you look at the numbers, we're getting closer and closer to not needing the subsidy. And so that would certainly be a real positive. Now, my firm has clients in all 50 states. And so if we were not to have air service, that would be a really bad deal for us. But regardless of that, we're getting to the point where the subsidy is going to go away.
Thank you, Gary. Ken?
Senator Bateman, you kind of stole some of my thunder. I am a free market capitalist, and in my ideal world, there would never need to be any subsidies because government is one thing and business is another thing. Government's primary role should be to provide an even playing field for anybody to compete. However, I'm also having to learn to be a politician. And part of being a politician is that C word, compromise. Sometimes things work out for the best. If everybody in the world thought exactly as I do, it'd be a different place. Probably wouldn't be a better one. What we need to do is make certain that these subsidies are not forever. Maybe when you were a teenager, you got yourself in trouble, you were in college or something, and you had to go to your folks and say, man, I need some help. That's a lot of times what government ends up doing, is kind of being daddy. But daddy's got to say this much and no more.
All right, thank you, Ken. Martha?
Anna, thank you for that question. I do not have an answer. I have been a candidate for 31 days. I have been thinking like a candidate for 31 days. And in that time frame, I must admit, nobody ever mentioned, and I never thought about the subsidies to the airport. So I'm not going to ramble. But in order to take advantage of my time, if I may, and I'm not going to talk a lot about Medicaid expansion, because even though it would bring millions into our state, it would not cost a lot. But I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, because the constituents continually tell their representatives and senators that they want Medicaid passed. If nothing changes, nothing changes. And we need new senators and legislators that will recognize that. Oops, okay.
Thank you, Martha. Representative Crago.
Thank you. So I think, like the rest of the panel, agree we need to continue down the path we've chosen, keep supporting the airline for the time being, keep supporting the subsidies, and move them closer, keep inching them closer to self-sustainability so that we have reliable air service here in Sheridan County, which those of us in Johnson County use a lot as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And you get to answer this next question first, Mr. Crago. The Permanent Mineral Trust Fund has taken a hit from the lack of revenues in the extractive industries. Given state constitution requirements for funding education, what is one way that you believe the legislature should address the shortfall?
So, one, I think we might want to wait a few days or weeks or months, because I think it's going to, based on what's going on in the country right now with the cost of oil, gas, et cetera, even what's going on with coal, I think the trust fund's going to grow back. And I don't want to jump to any conclusions about until we sort of see some reporting here, which we should shortly. We'll get the updated Craig reports coming out. So I'm not sure I'm willing to say we have anything we need to do at all right at the moment until we sort of see where we are following this inflationary period, because it's going to grow our state budget as far as income, and it's also going to grow the trust fund. And so, if we need to go there, I'm sure we can. There's lots of ideas to think about and lots of paths to go down, but right now I don't think we're ready to go there.
Thank you. Brian?
My direction. Okay, great. I want to start off this one. I'll answer that question, but I do want to start off with the last one. I have a master's of aeronautical science in airport operations. We were on track with the last airline that was in here, and the state pulled it out from under us. We were close to coming, and then the state grabbed it and decided they needed to do it on their own. I think that was a mistake, but I will, as I said, support it locally. When it comes to education, I think we should be taxing wind no different than we do coal, oil, and gas. Wind is a big thing. It's coming. We don't have a whole lot of opportunity to stop it. So I think we need to utilize that more than anything. Coal, oil, and gas is not going to go away, regardless of what folks think. It will be here for a long time. Yeah, we'll wait a little bit. I would agree with that. But I think we do need to go out and we need to look at wind and figure out ways to ensure that our education system is properly funded. But I think we can do that without throwing taxes on additional property taxes or income taxes or anything like that.
Thank you, Brian. Cyrus?
Yeah, could you please repeat the question?
Yes. The Permanent Mineral Trust Fund has taken a hit from the lack of revenue in the extractive industries. Given state constitution requirements for funding education, what is one way that you believe the legislature should address the shortfall?
So ultimately, I'm going to piggyback a little bit off Representative Crago. Let's just wait and see. We don't want to make any rash decisions based off fluctuations in the markets that could recover. There's plenty of volatility. But at a broad picture, I don't know if the governor's still here, but I really appreciate his approach when the times got tough. He had the guts to make some really painful cuts. And they were tough. They weren't 2% here, 1% there. For a lot of departments, it was 20%. And I really, and I'm proud to have supported that budget and some of those cuts. I'm also proud, now that things have gotten much better, to put a lot of that funding back in the budget for things like our community colleges, Wyoming Home Services, keeping some of those senior citizens in their homes. So those are at least a couple of the things, is having the prudence and the discipline to make those hard decisions when the time comes.
Thank you, Cyrus. Back to this end of the table with Bo.
Well, thank you. And I was trying to Google real quick because I don't necessarily agree with the premise of the question. I think the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund has grown every year. It went from $6 billion to $8 billion from 2013 to 2018, and now from 2018 to where we are now, I'm sure it's well over $8 billion plus. We're going to see a windfall with royalty payments, oil and gas lease, not lease royalties because they're not leasing federal lands right now, but wells that are currently in production in Wyoming, the severance tax money is going to be huge. We're going to see a lot of money from that. Coal, we've been selling a lot of coal. This is a banner year for Wyoming coal. That money's going into the permanent trust fund, so I kind of push back against the premise there. There's going to be plenty of money to go around when we get back to Cheyenne. Trust me, they'll be trying to spend it like crazy, like drunken sailors, like always, but you'll have me down there to protect you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bo. Mr. Hanson?
Can you state the question for us again?
Certainly. The Permanent Mineral Trust Fund has taken a hit from the lack of revenues from the extractive industries. Given state constitution requirements for funding education, what is one way that you believe the legislature should address the shortfall?
So I trust that it would have to be diversity. The answer has to be diversity. We're up here talking about more oil and gas, and one person talked about wind. There has to be more diversity in the fund that funds our education. It just seems to be kind of laziness that we always talk about, well, the coal's not doing very well. Bad school year next year. And the Democrats, honestly, as resilient as they are, has been pushing as the party supporting wide-ranging efforts to promote economic diversity, additional opportunities beyond our basic mineral extractions, and our economic stability. We need to bring something else in, and that is going to have to be the agricultural boom of marijuana.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Gary?
Any of you have looked at the budget for the state of Wyoming, it's like it needs 100 octopuses to figure where all the money's going at various times and various places. And I think that one of the things that needs to happen is that we need to figure out where all that money actually is going, what sources of revenues are going where. Certainly the Wyoming Constitution has a lot of strict mandates, but there's also flexibility. One of the things that's happening right now is that with energy prices so high, that's actually the main reason the stock market is down. And so while we've been getting actually more mineral royalty money and more severance tax, the investment fund's been going the other direction. So that's, that balance is not a bad thing, but I don't think we need to take away from education simply because of its funding source having a struggle.
Thank you, Gary. Ken?
I hope you guys were paying attention when you were listening to Tom and when you were listening to Brian, because they were quoting, I think, a very wise man who said, we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. Education in Wyoming has gone up exponentially over the last 10 years till the spending now is out of sight. It's over $20,000 a student projected for this next. The problem is that we have a top-heavy administration. Whenever you have a system that is failing due to inefficiency and it's too expensive, it means it doesn't have competition. So we need to open up competition. As for top-heavy administration, we have excellent teachers in the classrooms. We don't want to hurt them. We don't want to take away from them. But because they are excellent professionals, they don't need 6 layers of administrators watching over their shoulder, sitting around collecting an exorbitant salary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Martha?
Well, you all have gotten to know me a little bit. I'm not going to quite answer like the other gentleman at the table, because I don't know anyways. But what I am going to say about education and finances is that I started to say this earlier. I do not understand why Mr. Schroeder is saying that refusing to remodel some restrooms, and he is going to turn down thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for food that would feed our children. And so what I hear, it's the government and it's the federal government. My feeling is, in essence, they are giving us our own money back. We have paid the taxes, they're giving us money back. And I'll stop.
Thank you, Martha. You get to be the first to answer our last question.
Great. Is it multiple choice?
Sorry, sadly not.
Okay, you guys help me.
All right, but we're almost done. You're almost out of the hot seat.
Well,
please provide insight as to your view of lobbyists and special interest group influences on policy creation.
Well, I may have a thought on that. Again, what I know is I feel the lobbyists and such, and I'm talking about Wyoming State and not Congress, but it's my hope, and again, I'm almost thinking of the Medicaid expansion, except the legislators don't say yes ever. So the lobbyists, but they bring things to their attention. It's my hope that they verbalize concerns and give the legislators a different way to look at something that might make them change their vote instead of going down the same path. So I think they do play an important part. And then there's some lobbyists that go to the extreme, but I'm not going to go there.
Thank you, Martha. Barry?
Thank you. So lobbyists, that's like a dirty word or something, but especially on the national level. But I can tell you at the state level and the state legislature, they're an integral part of our process. We as legislators don't have staff. You go to other states, lots of other states, their state legislators, whether it be senators or reps or whatever, actually have staff to do research, to find the facts that are necessary to make important decisions on behalf of the constituents. We don't have that. And so lobbyists provide that service oftentimes. And there are some really good people in Cheyenne that are lobbyists that provide us that information in various groups. They come testify to our committees, and we're able to learn from them. That obviously we sometimes have to take things with a grain of salt. Sometimes they're advocates, and you have to understand that, but they also have facts that can be helpful on all of the issues, not any one in particular. And so I believe we can use them as the legislature to our benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Well, I'm going to make this one fairly short. Lobbyists, they're not staff. They have agendas. They do play a role down in Cheyenne. They play a role in Washington, D.C. But lobbyists ultimately are not the ones that are speaking for everybody in the room. We have different lobbyists that I think that people will consider lobbyists, that people would be better attuned to look at. When you look at the lobbyists that are down in Cheyenne, they have their little badge, and here they are. And they represent their little piece of the pie. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party both are lobbyists for a much larger number of people. And I think that's something that everyone out there ought to be looking at. You ought to be looking at what your own parties stand for, and while they're lobbying, them effectively lobbying for you as a whole. They're trying to find good candidates to run, and it's up for each of us to go ahead and support them. And so when it comes down to, we're all done.
Thank you, Brian. Cyrus, go ahead.
Well, it's like the advice I got from an old friend of mine about the legislature. It comes to lobbyists. Eat their food, drink their booze, take their money, and then vote against them. The reality is this. Corporations are allowed to have a say and have their input. And the times when I agree with them, I'll work with them and vote with them. But the times I don't vote with them. Because at the end of the day, I don't answer to them. My job is to be a lobbyist for my constituents. They elected me to go down there and represent their interests. So there are times I'll work with lobbyists on things that I agree on, I'll work with them, but then there are other times when I have to say, hey, I'm just not with you on this, and I can't support this bill. For example, with some of the gaming stuff that went down, about some of the skill games that you see, there was an army of lobbyists down there, but I have personal concerns about gaming. And the demographic that it's targeting, mainly lower income folks. So that's why I voted no on it, despite all the, the pressure and all the money they were trying to throw at it. So it just comes down to the issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Cyrus. Bo?
Thank you. That's a great question. Lobbyists do have a purpose. They do play a role, but the problem is they've completely replaced every single one of you. Because when I look around at committee meetings, it's all lobbyists. Most of them taxpayer-funded lobbyists. Did you know the School Board Association has a lobbyist? The Principals Association has a lobbyist. The County Commissioners Association. You go on down the line. School alone has probably 4 or 5 paid lobbyists, high-paid lobbyists, voting or pushing their agenda, not necessarily your agenda. So they have completely replaced you, and all too many legislators depend on them way too much. And they placate the lobbyists, and they forget about you. I never do that. I always pride myself on being the lobbyist for the Wyoming taxpayer, because I know you're back home working hard to pay the taxes to fund this government, that these lobbyists are down there trying to take that money for their own special interests. So I think if more of you all got involved, I know it's tough to get to Cheyenne in the wintertime, but you need to, and I'm out of time.
Thank you, Bo. Mark, go ahead.
Can I check to see if we're answering the question? Can I get the question again?
You bet. Please provide insight as to your view of lobbyists and special interest group influences on policy creation.
Well, I do agree about the lobbyists. They have their own agenda, and they are trying to sway anyone that they're talking to. And I do believe that you have to take lobbyists with a grain of salt, as someone said that. Make sure you can get their information, but we, as your leaders, have to investigate that ourselves before we make decisions on any of that. And that's what I would do.
Thank you. Gary?
Well, my first question is for Barry. We don't have a staff? So I've also heard the pay is pretty crummy. So I think that the pay being crummy part, I think, does help us perhaps stay away from the influence too much of lobbyists. There may be some useful information there, but I think government in general has just gotten too big, and so lobbyists become more and more important. So we do need to be careful about that. Now, I'm pretty much done with that. I do want to say one thing, though. I've heard twice on the stage tonight something that just isn't true, and that is that our education spending per student is actually less than $10,000 a year. The Wyoming state budget is a 2-year budget. And so all of our budget numbers are essentially double what they would be on an annual basis. We actually do compare in the ballpark with the other states near us.
Thank you, Gary. Ken, you're next.
Everybody in this room needs to consider yourself first and foremost a lobbyist. The legislator's job is to represent you. And if you never call them, if you never talk to them, if you never let them know what you're thinking, you're letting their time be taken over by the lobbyists, the special interest people that we're talking about. I get asked a lot, if you're elected, what can you do for this group or this business or that business? And my pat answer, my stock answer is, I don't really want to do anything for them. What I want to do is provide a level playing field so that anyone who wants to reach for greatness can do that. The opportunity that arrives with the crummy salary when somebody comes up and says, hey, if you can help me get this law changed so that I can do this business in this place, I can help get you reelected. And now we've got crony capitalism, and that's very different from capitalism.
Thank you, Ken. All right, that concludes our question and answer section. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I've learned so much tonight from all of our candidates. So thank you for being informed and informing the rest of us. All right, so our closing remarks begin now. You get 2 minutes. And Ken, you get to be the first to go.
Friday, my opponent said, the United States Constitution says anybody can vote in any primary that they want. The United States Constitution says the right of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or other election for president or vice president, or electors for president or vice president, or for senator, or for representative in Congress, shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state by reason of failure to pay any poll tax or any tax. One of the things that happens to you when you first get started, and I hope you hear this, is you hear things out there and you repeat them. Before you repeat them, and this is advice to anybody because I know I've struggled with it too, you need to go out and do your own homework. Do your own homework. I suggest that each person out there go do your own homework and see just how much we spend on a biennium on education per student.
Thank you, Ken. Martha?
Growing up in Wyoming, I remember the respect and support my parents and their friends had for each other, regardless of political party. We were taught, because they were the example, kindness and consideration. I would like to start the conversations that help bridge this divide. I use purple in my campaign because I see the need to blend blue and red. We need to return to the time when viewpoints were valued because they help us see that issues are not just blue or red. I look forward to meeting with my neighbors in District 29 and hearing your ideas and concerns. I will listen with an open mind and represent all of the district, not just those in my party. The last 10 years of my full-time employment, I was a caregiver for special needs adults and seniors. It brought me joy to care for and help make someone's life better. That's what our legislators are supposed to do, and I'm looking forward to that opportunity. We have a few months until the November election. At that time, you will decide whether to vote along your party lines or vote for someone who wants to serve you, to be your voice in the equality state. Because with courage and kindness, we will make a difference. My name is Martha Wright. I'm asking for your voice on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Representative Crago, you may go.
Thank you. So over the last couple of years as the representative for House District 40, I've worked hard to solve many of the day-to-day problems of our great state. I tried to approach each of these problems with common sense and an open mind. I listened to our constituents who normally have the answers to our problems if we just listen to them. I collaborated with other legislators to address these complex issues. For example, I was able to get a bill through that prevented a few bad actors in the oil and gas industry, along with some help from the guys up here, for failing to pay their taxes. Now they have to pay their taxes like the rest of us. Along with some of the legislators up here, we were able to keep our House districts, I should say, whole in Sheridan and Johnson County. We were able to keep Arvada and Claremont from being shipped off to Campbell County. We helped protect the lands around our veterans home in Buffalo and from being turned into a gravel pit, which was just shortly down the road. So when I campaigned the first time, and I came here 2 years ago, I told everyone that I would listen to them. I told them I would do my homework, I would read the bills, told you I'd work hard, told you I'd rely on my conservative values in making my decisions. I did all these things, and I'm asking for your vote to go back to Cheyenne and do them all over again, because I believe I can make a difference in Cheyenne for the people of House District 40. My name is Barry Crago, and I'm running for re-election for House District 40. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
Great. I'm Brian Miller, and I'm running for House District 51. I'm running for a lot of reasons, and I've talked about who I am earlier and given you a general idea of what each of the different questions and answered each of the different questions. What I do want to pass on to you now is I believe in these two documents here, the U.S. Constitution and the Wyoming Constitution. I read them, I study them, I understand them. The Bible is my third source that I use to run my life, basically, and to allow to get into my soul so that I can do the job that I do as, whether it be in the government, hopefully here in the future, or in what I do right now as my consulting job. There's several things I wanted to make sure that people knew. We talked about taxes, we talked about election integrity, talked about transparency and accountability, and an overreaching government throughout this time. I want folks to know that if you're looking for a lobbying group and you're in the Republican Party, you should be looking at the Republican women of Sheridan County. They're the best lobbyists out there. They have sent more emails and texts to the gentlemen that are up here and the folks down in Cheyenne than anyone in the state and record, more than any of the lobbyists do, because they study as well. They'd love to have you join them. I'd love to have you join them and be a part of that process. As was mentioned before, you are the ones who control your own destiny. You control your own destiny by deciding who you're going to vote for based on what they say they are going to do for you. Remember, election integrity starts with each of you. Vote on August 16th in your own party's primary. Don't become one of those people that go, you know what, I'm going to mess up the other side. Why? Because I can. Because I'll tell you, Title 22 states that it's fraud. So don't be crossing over and then crossing back. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Representative Western.
I want to start my closing remarks first by thanking the Chamber again. I know you guys put on a ton of work, and I can't thank you guys enough. So ultimately, I'm running on my record. I'm proud of my record and the votes I've made in Cheyenne. I'm proud of the fact that I have encouraged things like economic diversity. When it comes to the future, we have to have a two-pronged approach, defending our legacy industries, which I'm proud to be on the record doing, but also encouraging economic diversity and new job creation, which I'm on the record doing. I'm proud to have supported some of our most foundational important rights, like the Second Amendment, but I'm also proud of the record of focusing on what I feel one of the big parts of my mission is, and that's how do we make Wyoming and Sheridan County a better place to live, work, and raise a family. Those are the things I think about. The reality is this, elections are job interviews, and I never take a single vote for granted. It has to be earned every single time. The second any of us feel entitled, that's a bad feeling, and that's why I'm up here tonight. That's why I'm out campaigning, is because I am so proud of the work that I've done with some of these folks up here, and I would greatly appreciate the opportunity to go back to Cheyenne. And I encourage you to vote for me on August 16th for House District 51. Thank you.
Thank you, Cyrus. Representative Beitman.
Senator.
Oh, my goodness. Senator Beitman.
No, just
Thank you.
kidding.
Apologies.
I'm Senator Beitman. I'm asking for your vote for re-election. I've kept all my promises that I made to you 4 years ago and then some. I'm very proud of my record. I encourage you to go to bobeitman.com and check out my voting record. Go to wyoleg.gov. All of our voting records are up there on any particular bill, any year, and it goes back a long ways. I'm pro-Second Amendment, pro-life, pro-free market, pro-private property. We need property tax reform. We need election integrity reform. We need election reform. We got to outlaw ballot harvesting and ballot trafficking. I authored the crossover bill to stop crossover voting many times. I'm going to keep fighting until we get that changed. There's lots we can do. There's so many issues. We can't just pick three and try to answer them in 1 minute, right? So if I could just list off probably 10 issues that are facing Wyoming right now that are critical to each and every one of you. But it's important to elect people of integrity, people that keep their word, and people that are looking out for your best interests. I have two daughters, 10 and 12 years old, Holly and Alyssa. They attend Tongue River, well, now middle school. I have two middle schoolers. Holy cow. You got to send me to Cheyenne. I need to get out of the house. You know, I have skin in the game. There's not very many legislators that have kids in public schools. I think maybe less than 5 of us right now out of 90. So it's important to elect somebody that shares your values, has skin in the game, and really cares about the voters of Wyoming. I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bo. All right. Mark.
Hey, everybody. Mark Hansen. I come up with my own motto. If anybody can, son, Mark Hansen. Did you like that? Not bad. I, myself, am I don't even know where to start either. I have graduated kindergarten from Wyoming. I graduated high school from Wyoming. I've graduated four-year college degree, bachelor's of science from our University of Wyoming. I have joined our Wyoming Army National Guard. I worked full-time for our Wyoming Guard for over 12 and a half years. I've served federal many times, too much. I have had to deal with databases and all sorts of stuff, helping everybody. But I understand service to the country, and I understand service to the people. Every time that I served the brand and I made the decision to help the state or to help the organization instead of helping the people, it always came back to bite me every single time. The people didn't stay. They don't stay if they don't have to, if you don't take care of them. You take care of the people of Wyoming, and they will become loyal to Wyoming, and they will find something to be motivated about. Take care of the people, and they will take care of you. Medicaid expansion is applying millions of dollars to states all around us right now. And that agricultural crop that you don't want to hear about is providing millions of dollars to the states all around us right now. Medicaid expansion increased Montana jobs by 6,000 and added $400 million to their personal income. I don't even want to talk about how much money that agricultural crop will bring to Wyoming. And I don't even see it necessarily as being a recreational use. Its main use, I read in a USDA pamphlet in '91, is for feed for the cattle. It is the highest perennial growing plant. And USDA recommends it for Wyoming, for its resiliency and its hardiness. It's just waiting there. I know it's a big challenge. I know it's a big change, but
Apologies, your
please
time
do your
is up.
best. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, Gary.
Well, I'm certainly glad we left the best for last. I'm Gary Miller. I'm running for a seat in the Wyoming House of Representatives, representing District 29. I'm running because I absolutely love Sheridan, Wyoming, and want to keep it wonderful. I'm a conservative Republican small government advocate. Thank you, Sheridan Chamber of Commerce, for organizing this meaningful event. And thank you, WYO Theater, for being such a great venue for this. Biggest gratitude, though, belongs to you, the audience, for taking the time to learn more about the candidates for state office. There are big storm clouds forming from outside our wonderful state that are hurting all of us here in Wyoming. I'm a strong supporter of the U.S. Constitution, but federal government overreach has gotten out of control. The economy is a mess, our civil liberties are under attack, and the war on fossil fuels is hurting our energy industry, contributing to high inflation, and negatively impacting our tax base. Governments tend to be extremely inefficient, so I plan to bring my business and financial expertise to the Wyoming House to help streamline state operations and to help bring good jobs to Wyoming. I have no preconceived solutions, but I will do the research and I will do the math. I hope my analytic problem-solving skills can help keep our taxes low, our budget balanced, and our state free. I will also listen to you. Please come to one of my Meet the Candidate gatherings every Wednesday starting tomorrow from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock on my front porch at 375 West College Avenue. I have a lot to learn from you, and I'd love for you to come. I have for over 35 years managed other people's money, and I will manage your tax dollars with that same fiduciary responsibility. Thank you, and please vote for me in the Republican primary on August 16th.
Thank you, Gary. Let's give a hand to all of our candidates. Just a couple quick notes before you go. First of all, this is kind of a big announcement. There's a new website where all of the candidates can post their information, their contact information, where they stand on the issues. It's called wyvote.vote, WYVOTE.vote. Go check it out. It was just launched, I don't know, a week ago. So go find more information about your candidates there. And candidates, you are free to send information to that website if you want it posted there. On behalf of the Chamber and its Government Affairs Committee, I'd like to thank the candidates and all other volunteers involved with making this happen tonight. Also, a special thank you to the WYO Theater staff, as well as all of you for attending. Please vote on or before August 16th this summer. Thank you for coming.